gave us their assessment of the 6th Parliament, considering, of course, that the 6th Parliament's term comes to an end next year ahead of the 2024 election. But also, they've now also announced that they will be submitting a PAIA application to obtain every national minister's full performance assessment. Remember, earlier we were told that the presidency or the president doesn't want to release the performance assessments because he doesn't want to embarrass the ministers. I wonder if that in its own is not an admission that the president himself is possibly not happy with his executive, or at least some of the people in his executive. And then also on the show this afternoon, we look at the new visa regulations that have been published in the UK. We'll be speaking to Musa Mdunge, who's a political analyst and PhD candidate based at the University of Dundee. And then at 10 to 4, we speak to Joe De Beer, who's a DDG responsible for economic statistics at Stats SA releasing data that South Africa's GDP has decreased by 0.2% compared to the previous 3 months, and this is according to Stats SA, so we'll be speaking about that. And then this horrific story that happened in the Free State, the body of a 16-year-old learner that was discovered in the early hours of yesterday morning after she went missing for over 48 hours. We'll be speaking to the MEC for Education in the Free State, Makalo Mohale, will be joining us at around 20 past 4. And then at 20 past 5, we speak to Andrew Lukele, who is the chairperson of the National Stockfel Society of South Africa, the National Stockfel Society of South Africa, warning members of Stockfels to keep their operations private, especially as the festive season gets underway. 0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM.
So Cameroon officials are only about 200 of the Central African Republic's 300,000 refugees voluntarily returned home on Monday. This is now according to what the Cameroon officials are saying. A majority of the displaced Central Africans are reluctant to voluntarily return to their country for fear that they will meet poverty and a prolonged armed conflict. The CAR government is, however, giving assurances that sectarian violence and carnage since 2014 was greatly reduced, and its fleeing citizens who return will be protected. Channel Africa's Moki Genzeka has that story.
Central African Republic refugees in Cameroon have started returning home after fleeing political and sectarian violence there since 2014. There are around 300,000 CAR refugees in Cameroon, most of them women and children. Cameroon authorities and the UN's refugee agency, the UNHCR, say 2,500 refugees, most of them women and children, have agreed to return home before the end of this year. But UNHCR Cameroon representative Olivier Bier says most of the refugees in Cameroon are still reluctant.
Nous ne sommes pas encore dans une situation de rapatriement promu parce que
Bier says a majority of the refugees have not accepted to voluntarily return because security is unstable in the CAR. But he says there are some towns and villages that have been pacified by the CAR's military.
Le retour est toujours volontaire et toujours sur base de l'information que les réfugiés reçoivent.
Cameroon's Territorial Administration Minister Paul Atanganji says militaries on both sides will protect refugees as they were returning home. Nji says there are still problems of CAR rebels crossing into Cameroon to steal supplies and abduct civilians for ransom.
We have about 4,500 new refugees. That is why we have come here to see exactly how the exercise is being carried. The Minister of Territorial Administration is here on special assignment from President Paul Biya to see so many things which are going wrong as a result of the political insecurity in our neighboring country. So this is the entry point of the refugees, and the statistics are being taken. Then all the offices which have to attend to them will fall back to their different services for resources. There's a drastic reduction in resources. So maybe for now they can manage, but if they have to receive many more refugees, it becomes a problem. So that is the summary of what we are doing.
Violence erupted among armed groups in the CAR in 2013 when the then president, Francois Bozize, was ousted by the Seleka, a Muslim minority rebel coalition. In January 2021, hundreds of CAR civilians fled sporadic clashes after the presidential election, many of them to Cameroon. The UN says since 2013, close to 1 million Central Africans have fled conflict to neighboring Cameroon, Chad, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Nigeria. The voluntary repatriation of CAR refugees began in 2016, but was suspended in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Reporting for Channel Africa, this is Moki Kinzaka in Yaoundé, Cameroon.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
It's 15 minutes after 3 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Siviwe Gwarube, who is Parliament's chief whip of the official opposition, the Democratic Alliance, which has announced that they will submit a PAIA application to obtain every national minister's full performance assessment. The party made this announcement earlier on today when they were briefing the media about their assessment of the country's 6th Parliament. Siviwe now joining us on the line. Siviwe, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. I have to say that when I was listening to the President's spokesperson speaking about why the assessments would not be made public, and he said that the president doesn't want to embarrass the ministers, I thought to myself that maybe that's an admission that even the president isn't as confident in the decisions that he has taken around the appointment of some of these ministers at least, and that's the reason that he doesn't want to make this information public. What's your take on it?
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and good afternoon to your listeners. Absolutely. I mean, S1 also, I think definitely the president has surrounded himself with cabinet ministers that he himself does not have confidence in. But more importantly, and I think more devastatingly for ordinary South Africans, it's an admission that I think that these ministers have not really delivered against what South Africans have needed them to do, particularly in this last term. As you know, in the executive. But what is more telling and perhaps I think more troublesome by that utterance by the spokesperson is the assumption that these ministers are just accountable to the president. But we know that it is not the case, Aldrin, because Section 90 of the Constitution states that the deputy president and the cabinet, essentially the entire executive, are accountable to Parliament. And Parliament, as a representative of the public, is entitled to understand. Yes, your performance agreements are made online, are made available on the website after many years of pushing them to be. But we want to see how the ministers have fared against that agreement. An agreement is only as good as a blank document. But without an indication of how each very minister has performed, we don't know how the president's cabinet is performing. And the notion that, this is going to embarrass the ministers is, quite frankly, neither here nor there. The reality is that this embarrassment that the president is running away from is essentially some of the things that are facing South Africans the most. And so that is why we believe that this information needs to be made public.
What's the intention with having the information public? Because then what you do with the information you shared with the public, then what happens? Because at the end of the day, we're told that the president has the prerogative to appoint whoever he wants to appoint.
Absolutely, he does. But at the end of the day, as I said, the Constitution makes it very explicit that members of the executive are accountable to Parliament. They may be appointed by the president, but ultimately the performance and the lack thereof is something that the public ought to know. And I think while many South Africans are feeling the pinch of the non-performance of ministers, whether it is them feeling a little, unsafe in their communities, or the rising cost of living, or the electricity crisis, all these things are testament to a cabinet that does not know how to deliver against a set, sort of priorities. But it's important that South Africans get to see that in black and white, to say, even against the agreed targets signed by the president, signed by the ministers themselves, here is in technicolor how the ministers have fared. This does also assist, Aldrin, in voters and the public in general making their decisions about their government and the government that they want. So I think an informed voter, an informed member of the public is an empowered person. And so I think it's not up to the president about to decide whether or, what is embarrassing and what is not embarrassing. He needs to understand the values of accountability and transparency. And so that's why we're not taking this matter lightly, because we do believe that it goes to the core of the fact that government is not delivering and there isn't a sense of urgency or a worry about being held accountable.
And looking at the assessment of the Sixth Parliament, quite a bleak picture that you're painting there as well. But then you have Parliament that has dealt with unprecedented issues, for instance, even with the impeachment of the public protector, which has never happened before, and now also with Judge Mutata as well as Justice John Hlophe.
Look, of course, as today we presented the performance of Parliament. I think there are a lot of things that Parliament could have done, particularly being responsive to issues that are facing South Africans the most. One of my biggest criticisms of our Parliament is that it has not made itself the center of public debate of the things that really affect South Africans the most. Instead, we believe somehow that it is a separated entity away from the public. And of course, the things that you highlight, the impeachment of the public protector, the Section 89 panel review, and the impeachment and the possible impeachment of the judges, these are the things that the Democratic Alliance has been at the forefront of driving. And we are proud of our record over the past 5 years, and we are proud that we've stretched Parliament to its limits. In terms of what is possible. But for me, I think a parliament that has succeeded will be a parliament that is truly reflected of what the people are going through and what they want from us, and not what we as politicians want to discuss.
So the Seventh Parliament will possibly have independent candidates. Do you think that having independent candidates there will probably make Parliament more responsive to the plight of different societies and also the competing interests at that as well?
Look, I mean, we obviously, with the judgment having been handed down, we look forward to the deepening of democracy and very much the reflection of people's views and beliefs in Parliament. But the one concern, and it's a big concern that I have in particular, is that Parliament has not in any way readied itself for the coming of independent candidates, and how that is going to affect speaking time in Parliament, how that's going to affect questions and with the executive, and how that will affect
and allocations to committees.
And so that is a concern, and that's been something that we've been raising, to say that when we are compiling the Seventh Parliament legacy report, we've got to apply our minds to this, including the possibility of a national coalition government. It cannot be that we're burying our heads in the sand and then the day after the election we are now faced with new entrants in Parliament, a coalition government possibly, and we're yet to design systems to deal with it. And so we've got about 3 months before an election, possibly in May, and it's incredibly important that we get on with it. And I mean, I understand that the ANC is not very enthusiastic about possibly planning for a post-ANC parliament, but it's incredibly important that it happens.
Sivia Kwarupe, thank you so much for your time. That is the Chief Whip of the Democratic Alliance, speaking to us about their intention to go to court to submit a PIA application to get the full performance assessment of the ministers and also their assessment of the Sixth Parliament.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
It is 23 minutes after 3 o'clock. We're in conversation next with, we move over now to the story actually. We're off to Scotland. We speak to Musa Mdunge, a political analyst and PhD candidate based at the University of Dundee. So after acknowledging that the net migration is too high, Rishi Sunak's government has announced new visa rules that will make it difficult for foreigners to move to the UK. However, though, the new rules have faced some backlash from some sectors, such as healthcare, which is already experiencing staff shortages. According to the UK government, the tightening of immigration rules aims to reduce the migration that the country has been experiencing. Musa Mdunga now joining us on the line. Musa, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. What necessitated these new rules when it comes to visa applications? And also on the other end as well, you have the UK that has been complaining of an aging population, and there were talks about the way to deal with that is actually to allow migrants into the country. So how are they going to deal with that element as well?
Thank you so much for having me, and good afternoon to you and to your listeners. So, indeed, this has been a huge issue for the Conservative Party and for the United Kingdom, and you are quite spot on about the dilemma that they face. Since 2016, the exit of the United Kingdom from, the EU, the United Kingdom has seen a fall in migration, particularly from the EU, and that has had particular implications in certain sectors such as healthcare and social care, but also in the entertainment sector and services sector, which are really key sectors when you think about the structure of the United Kingdom's economy. And it has been seen in the levels of lack of economic growth that the country has faced, as well as high levels of inflation and cost of living crisis that indeed show and indicate an economic structure that really has a crisis, particularly when you look at the aging population in the country. And so, indeed, as migration has increased from outside of the EU, that has posed certain challenges for the Conservative Party, particularly for Rishi Sunak, who wants to really deal with this issue and is facing pressure from his own backbenchers who are calling on a harder line by the government when it comes to migration. And so these rules are an attempt by Rishi Sunak and his government to remedy the situation, but there hasn't been due thought about the economic implications of such a move.
And also now looking at the intention to raise the minimum income for family visas to £38,000 compared to £18,600 that they currently have as the minimum. How far does something like that goes? Because it almost seems that what the government is trying to do is that you penalize the possible employer or try to prevent them from actually employing somebody from outside.
Indeed, that is the implication that the move will have. Indeed, in making employers having to make tough decisions when it comes to employing people from outside the UK, talent that they need in order to grow their businesses and really bring in the kind of economic stimulus that the United Kingdom needs, because it's only through stimulating productivity in the economy that you will then begin to see inflation reduce. Unfortunately, the way the United Kingdom's economy is structured currently, given also the external factors that the economy faces around the world, what we are seeing today is an economic structure that is actually, against economic growth. And this is the challenge about the migration policy as presented by Rishi Sunak and his government, is that on one hand, it is tougher on migration, but it is weaker on economic policy. It's weaker on thinking through the economic dynamics that they need to consider. Dynamics, by the way, that his own Chancellor of the Exchequer acknowledged that migration was very key in supporting and boosting the United Kingdom economy. And so these are the kind of things that the government is going to have to really deal with. And there is pressure both from within the party and outside of the party to really deal with this question and get a clear sense of where the government moves.
Because with this one, it's not like we're speaking here of illegal immigration. Here we're speaking about people who actually go the formal route, go through the processes to apply for a visa and so forth. It's not the undocumented foreign nationals, which also the UK is dealing with.
Indeed, this is the thing that the UK needs to think about. What is the talent that you need to attract in order to ensure that the United Kingdom continues to be a vibrant economic player in the global economic system? We know that right now, it is the sixth largest economy, and India has overtaken it as the fifth largest economy. If the United Kingdom continues on this track, it may be an economy of yesterday's yesterday's relevance. And these are the things that it's got to think about. What it needs to learn from is countries like Australia and Canada, which have kind of gotten the issue around migration very well, particularly being able to attract the right skills into their countries. What the UK needs to do is look at targeted migration and reduce the impediments towards attracting those skills. That's the kind of thing that it needs to do. And on the other hand, look at how it reforms the structure of its economy in order to ensure that you have an increase in pay that will attract local people back into the work market to fill in those shortages.
Yep.
That's the kind of reform that they need and that they need to be looking at.
Thank you so much for your time. Musa Mdunga, the political analyst and PhD candidate based at the University of Dundee, joining us from Scotland.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is the 5th of December, and it was on this day that news broke that the first democratically elected the president of the country, Nelson Mandela, had passed on. Mpho Sithole about to give us a news headline. Mpho, do you remember where you were on the 5th of December?
I remember, Aldrin. Hi. I was actually on maternity leave, and I remember wanting to go back to the newsroom and not missing out on covering the story. I think, just wanting to be a part of it, really. Yeah.
I remember mine as well, but I'll be sharing that with our listeners. And if you want to share your experience and what you were doing on the 5th of December when the news broke, please do share your voice notes on 0614 104 107. And Mpho Sithole standing by with the news headlines.
Thanks, Aldrin. Good afternoon. Making headlines, Deputy President Paul Mashatile has paid tribute to the late former President Nelson Mandela, who passed away on this day 10 years ago. Mashatile delivered his first annual address to the NCOP. The theme of this year's address and debate is accelerating the provincial social services, safety and the advancement of economic reforms for economic recovery in the interest of the people. In other news, the Democratic Alliance says it will go to the courts to force President Cyril Ramaphosa to make public the performance assessment of cabinet ministers. Ramaphosa signed performance agreements with ministers in 2020. And the World Health Organization says the situation in Gaza is getting worse by the hour, with intensified bombing by Israeli forces around the southern towns of Khan Yunis and Rafah. I'll have these and other stories at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And let's get a traffic update with Rob Byrne. Good afternoon.
Duncan, thank you very much. The R59 moving towards the Vaal. Some roadworks at Randval have been lifted. Of course, the big queue earlier this afternoon. If you came north and were worried about going back south, fear not, those roadworks are out of the way. Plenty of traffic around the Bedfordview area. Very slow on the N3 north. Heldon Ace up in towards Gilulis for a connection to the N12 east. And the breakdown on the N3 south on the opposite side at Van Buren. So some queuing pressure from Gilulis. A breakdown on the Rigel Avenue N1 south. So coming out of Pretoria, there's a backlog from Garsfontein side. Good news if you're worried about driving between Durban and Pietermaritzburg. That spillage of molasses has finally been cleared up. All lanes have been reopened. All the big backlogs on routes like the R103 and the 623 and 603, that's all eased up. It's normal flow just south of Pietermaritzburg and south of Linfield Park. Cape Town today, fairly slow going through Epping. There is some load shedding underway, so the N7's queuing at a couple of junctions. And busy coming out of the CBD on the Bayton truck run. That's queuing up from Whale Street all the way through to the elevated freeway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
To me, so dramatic.
What do you mean?
The original Soweto derby.
Yes. If you were to ask our listeners right now, what is the original Soweto? Which two teams were part of the original Soweto derby? They'll tell you.
It is.
Orlando Pirates and Morocco Swallows.
So Chiefs came like...
Yeah, it's afterwards. This one is the
but
original
the main one is the...
This is the main one.
Amaswai. Waka panya panya.
Afternoon to you too.
Afternoon to you too.
All right, let's get straight into what's happening in the world of sports. There you have it. It's some DStv Premiership action today. And yes, the original Soweto derby. Orlando Pirates playing host to Morocco Swallows at Orlando Stadium today. And the Bucks will be without Tabang Monare. He has 4 yellow cards. The Buccaneers are currently 9th on the league table with 16 points from 11 games. And they're looking to climb the standings with another improved performance, while the Dube Birds are 6th on the log with 18 points from 5 wins, 3 draws and 3 defeats. Meanwhile, Amazulu coach Pablo Martin admits that they are now desperate to pick up points in the league when they welcome defending champions Mamelodi Sundowns tomorrow night. Usutu were hoping to go into the clash as Carling Knockout Cup finalists, but losing 3-2 to Tiers Galaxy at the weekend means that their host Downs a little deflated. Martin has switched focus to the league, where Amazulu find themselves outside the top 8, and that is a position the coach says doesn't align with their targets.
We need to know that we are playing for our futures, if we all want to play for the same objectives as last season, and being there in the position 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and maybe not to do well and then to drop until the 12, 13, and then start looking at relegation and being afraid. Maybe it's what can happen if we are not focused.
Elsewhere, the Lionesses were nominated as the qualifying team for Great Britain for next year's games in Paris, and they need to reach the Nations League finals in order to stay within a chance of achieving qualification. However, England are currently second in Group A, so they need to beat Scotland and hope the Netherlands, who are top of the table, fail to win at home to Belgium.
Well, I understand the conversations about it, but if you have seen our group, and if you have seen Scotland, and if you know the history Scotland-England, then there's no way that they are going to give away this game. They really want to beat England, and we want to beat them, of course. So, yes, there's such a rivalry that that's absolutely not going to be the case. We saw that when we played in England, and that's what it's going to be.
That's England's women national team coach, Serena Wichmann. Then moving on to rugby, the Blitzbok will run out in Cape Town as the top seeds for the tournament this weekend. The South Africans have been drawn in Pool A with Ireland, Great Britain and the USA for what promises to be an action-packed 2 days of rugby at Cape Town Stadium. Argentina will face Fiji, France and Spain in Pool B, while defending champion Samoa will face old foes New Zealand as well as Australia and Canada in Pool C. Stand-in coach Philip Snyman says that he knows that there will be added pressure in Cape Town.
Yeah, I rather have a little bit more pressure than no pressure at all, and nobody care about us. So, to be honest, I think exactly the same mentality and the same focus as this week. We want every training session be better when we walk off that pitch, make use of our time on the field, tweak 1 or 2 things. I still believe we can still be 10 or 20% better. Still a lot of missed tackles, once or twice that we didn't use our opportunities when we entered the 22. So we'll approach this week every practice session and then that first game. So try to shut all the noises and from the outside and just focus on ourselves, and that's what we said. We want to focus on the Springbok Sevens jersey.
Anything's off with cricket. Australia's Glenn Maxwell says that he hasn't given up hope of playing Test cricket again, and says his record in the subcontinent could earn him a recall for the first time in more than 7 years when the team tours Sri Lanka in early 2025. The subcontinent has been a happy hunting ground for Maxwell, who played all 7 of his tests against South Asian teams. His only Test 100 came in India, and he was one of the architects of Australia's win in the 50 overs World Cup in India last month. With that said, it's a wrap from my side. I'll have more in the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I'm Dumen Kapele.
So it's the 5th of December 2013.
Yeah.
It's late into the evening. News breaks that Nelson Mandela... President Jacob Zuma comes onto the TV and in a very somber tone, fellow South Africans, it's with great sadness. Where were you?
I was at home, but I remember getting a text from my then editor saying you need to prepare yourself. Tomorrow is going to be a very busy day. But throughout the week, we were already preparing packages.
Yeah.
About
the M plan.
Madiba. Yes, the plan. And because obviously I work in the sports department, we had to come with those sports angles. He loved boxing.
Yeah.
He was there when the Springboks were winning. You know, we had to find all those angles. And I find it very interesting. I was telling you off air that today we're commemorating 10 years of his death. And just this weekend, I was at Robben Island. And I saw his cell for the first time. There
4664.
4664, yes. Yeah. And it was the inaugural Robben Island Museum marathon or run.
Yeah.
But it was quite nice just to see some of the things that they did over there and just to also see that cell.
So did you like... So when you're in a cell, did you like have a little like moment of, geez, this is it?
Yeah, I literally slept where he used to sleep, took a picture there. And I was telling everyone there that I'm breathing in his greatness. And then I got to see where him and what's his name? Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Took a picture, remember, behind the cell. Yes. Yeah, like it's just so surreal because I've been seeing it on pictures and now I'm seeing it live. And I was very fortunate because when you go to Robben Island, you actually don't really get off. To go inside the cells. So you just literally see it from outside. I got the chance to actually go in. So
not just inside the cell.
Inside. I'm not sure. I think, yes, they can get off when they get to that prison, but I'm not sure if they go inside. But yeah.
But Tumin Kapela made it inside 4664. So tell us about where you were on the 5th of December 2013 when the news broke of Mandela's passing. As I was saying earlier to Bridget, I was actually celebrating a friend's birthday, mostly journalists around, and when the news broke, we knew that all glasses on the table, you need to go and work.
Polokwane City want to test if Kaizer Chiefs can handle the Limpopo heat. Their plan is to get a comfortable position in the top half, but the Kosi Nation is in a good mood to collect maximum points away from home. Rise and Shine versus Rise Kosi Rise. This is the DSTV Premiership. Polokwane City versus Kaizer Chiefs on Saturday 9 December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The award-winning SAFM Playwriting Competition is back.
I remember a time when my grandmother, she would make sure that she never missed that story.
SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound.
I mean, I remember Pipito, she remember all of those. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it was fiction.
The theater of the mind. And to create a 1-hour radio play in English, get writing now and submit your play before the 22nd of January 2024. For more information, visit safm.co.za.
Good afternoon. This is your captain speaking with just a little flight information. We're flying at an altitude of 37,000 feet and our airspeed is 400 miles an hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BTH Airline. I'm your co-pilot, Aldrin Sampear, and I'm with you from 3 to 6, flying you through the turbulent airwaves. But the landing will be smooth.
So just sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of the flight.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Good afternoon, Aldrin, John in Bloemfontein. I remember it very well. 5th of December 2013. We were in Port. We went for the cricket tournament, the University Sports South Africa national tournament. My roommate was Boka, remember very well. So this guy wakes me up, I'm sleeping, he's like, hey, chow. I'm like, hey, muna, Boka king, ma. He's like, hey, muna, Mandela Ochai. Then from then on, we were watching the news. And then from the news, we went to the field. We were playing poker. Yeah, we were playing poker that day. And then we had a moment of silence. We wore those black armbands or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I remember it very well. 5th of December 2013. May the good man continue to rest in peace. Danko, John in Bloemfontein.
Hey, Aldrin. What a coincidence that Mandela had to pass away on Sobukwe's birthday. I'm no conspiracy theorist, but yeah, Sobukwe's legacy will forever be diminished. So sad.
Good day, Aldrin, and your production team there. This is Flores from the Western Cape. Aldrin, yes, I remember very clearly. It was on a Thursday evening, around about 8:45. So yeah, but somewhere there. Yeah, I was watching TV together with my wife, and yeah, what a shock it was. I think my wife really was a massive fan of Nelson Mandela. So yeah, I remember it was on a Thursday, and I know he died of lung issues. So yeah, just want to say to the family that we are thinking of them as they celebrating and commemorating his life, and also thank you for what they have sacrificed for us as South Africans. So yeah, thank you. Have a good show. Bye.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen. This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Yeah, continue to send us those voice notes about where you were when the former president Nelson Mandela passed on, or the news of his passing on broke. It was on the 5th of December 2013. And yeah, as I was saying, that we were at a friend's birthday party and we were told that, hey, you need to go back to the newsroom. And we broke the story that he has passed on. Our anchor, Ubongi, on the day struggled to break the news, and she just broke down and she cried. And immediately after that, it was now the assigning stories to the various reporters who were on duty or at that time, late in the evening, going to Soweto. I went to Soweto. I went to Vilakazi Street, and geez, by the time I got there, which was probably just about 2 hours after the announcement of his passing on, the street was packed to capacity. It almost felt like it was a street bash that was happening in Vilakazi Street, and people just celebrating the life and legacy of Nelson Mandela. So do share those with us as well. 0614-104-107. Malawi has introduced drones to curb the rampant smuggling of goods in the borders of Malawi and Mozambique. The ministers of defense and security, including that of trade and transport from the two countries, have since agreed to the usage of drones, according to the head of corporate affairs at Malawi's Revenue Authority, Stephen Kopoloma. The move follows a meeting with their Mozambican counterparts in dealing with the vice within the borders. George Mango has that story.
The same concept of introducing drones in borders to tackle smuggling of goods into Malawi will also be introduced in borders with Tanzania and Zambia with funding from the World Bank. In 2021, Malawi authorities recorded 421 goods smuggling cases, 440 cases in 2022, and 419 recorded so far in 2023. Apart from using drones, Lilongwe has also devised other ways of dealing with smuggling, including the introduction of roving teams, the use of non-intrusive technology, identifying new roadblock sites, and informant reward systems. The tax collecting body has also introduced patrol teams in the eastern and western regions on top of the existing teams in the south, center, and north. Malawi Revenue Authority Head of Corporate Affairs, Steve Kaboloma, hinted that smuggling takes place throughout the country, hence the idea to tighten surveillance initiatives.
As you are aware, the borders between Malawi and neighboring countries are porous, and it is very difficult to manage with the physical monitoring of the borders through patrols. The coming in of drones will enable the authority to be able to capture on a radius of 10 kilometers or more the kind of activities that are taking place in and around our borders, and thereby being able to have a risk-based and intelligence-based kind of counteracting of our smuggling. The drones will be able to foster our patrols by making sure that they are more targeted and more forthright, rather than the current case where we are relying on informants on the ground to be able to tip us on areas where smuggling is taking place.
Last year, Malawi lost $1 billion due to tax evasion, of which smuggling is one of them, according to revenue authorities. Chair of Malawi's Parliamentary Committee of Defense and Security, Raf Juma, has since told SABC that they would further engage their counterparts in neighboring countries in dealing with the vice.
The committee would be willing to facilitate the meeting of the police here and the police in Mozambique, our MRA and the Mozambique Revenue Authority, parliamentarians here and parliamentarians in Mozambique, to chart the way forward, because we are aware that without Mozambique coming in and assist in that whole program, it might not be easy for us to achieve the objective of addressing the challenge of smuggling.
Social campaigners have also added voice by advising people to desist from aiding smugglers, for MRA to collect more revenue and enable Lilongwe to construct more schools, hospitals, roads and bridges, and also provide social services for the betterment of all Malawians. George Muhango, Channel Africa News, Blantyre.
It's the celebration of the century, and you're invited. We've already given away almost 3 million rand with 56 daily vouchers won. Buy a new Ford before 31 December and you could win a 50,000 rand voucher or the grand prize of us paying for your new Ford. Visit your nearest Ford dealer today. TNCs apply.
EFC is live this Thursday. 3 incredible title fights in one night. The welterweight strap is on the line as Mark Hume takes on Peace Ngopane. And the most dominant featherweight Iga Cabeza faces the only man he has lost to in 6 years, the Pitbull, Ronaldo Exon. Plus, the finishing machine Humphrey King Cobra Malenga takes on Kaleka Kabanda for the vacant lightweight title. EFC 110, watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies invites interested individuals and stakeholders to submit written comments on the SABC bill. The bill seeks to repeal the Broadcasting Act of 1999 to regulate the continued existence of the SABC, to provide its governance, to amend the ICASA Act of 2000 and the Electronic Communications Act of 2005. For more information, contact the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technologies by emailing sabcbill@parliament.gov.za, directed to Hanjiera Sali. The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM.
It is 7 minutes now before 4 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Joe De Beer, who's the DDG responsible for economic statistics at Stats SA. So the South African economy recorded a minor contraction in the third quarter of this year as output fell in the agriculture, mining, as well as the construction industry, Stats SA's data revealed earlier on today. According to Joe De Beer, the DDG responsible for economic statistics at Stats SA, almost all sectors of the economy were neither growing nor declining, but what informs this trend? And De Beer now joins us to elaborate further on this. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the invite.
Let's start off with the agriculture sector. We saw how the avian flu, for instance, had a major impact on in the inflation that was announced not so long ago, but now also seeing that the impact that the avian flu has had on the industry itself.
Yeah, you're quite correct. The last bit of this quarter, we recorded a little bit of the avian flu impact. We might see a little bit of that as well in the fourth quarter. But in addition, in quarter three, we saw a decline in the other normal field crops and a little bit in the horticulture products.
And also speaking about the impact of the El Nino and El Nina?
Yeah, I mean, agriculture is so weather dependent. If the rain comes, whether it comes early or comes late or too little or too much, all of that impacts on agriculture. And our current estimates show for the third quarter that we actually declined by the 9.6. Agriculture is quite tricky to measure because you have to have a view of what the year is going to yield. So if we get firmer data when we publish the fourth quarter numbers, we might see a revisiting of this estimate for the third quarter.
And what would you say the biggest contributor was to this slight decline or slight contraction?
Talking overall for the economy.
Overall, the economy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you said it so well in your intro. Everything grew by either a 0, a +1, or a -1, apart now from the agriculture with them contributing negative 0.3. So the entire economy, as it is, just sort of motionless, if I can put it that way. Half of the industries gave us small positives, half of them gave us very small negatives, and that all cancelled out to the negative 0.2. It is as if there's no clear industry that really drives it. If we go back to the quarters where we had strong growth of maybe 1%, 1.5% even, then you would see we had strong mining with exports. There was strong manufacturing taking place, which reflected again in wholesale. That led to transport doing well because we have to transport the things that we have mined. Households were doing quite well. They were buying everything that we were importing. We had strong exports. But at the moment, everything just seems to be moving sideways at quite a slow rate.
I don't know, Joe, if you're able to attribute this decline to the logistical challenges that the country is facing, but also on the other part, perhaps even how the households, for instance, feel squeezed. Because I find it interesting to note that food and beverages, as well as the tobacco division, also contributed to this decrease that we've seen.
You're quite right. The logistics definitely has an impact. Manufacturing and mining are very much dependent on logistics. And if you can't get the things to the harbors, then you can't export them. But interestingly enough, our sector for transport, storage and communication actually made a positive contribution, albeit very small, to the total economy. And that was because our main railway company did a lot of expansion for ferrochromes and exporting that through to one of our neighboring countries. The households, is interesting enough, 2 consecutive quarters of contraction. As I said in the press conference, the households are actually in a recession, if we want to be quite pedantic about the definition of a recession. And I mean, what the households spend on, the biggest spend was clothing and footwear, 2.2%. But on the negative side, transport, we saw new vehicle sales drop. Petrol is expensive. We don't just drive around for the fun of it anymore. Recreation and culture was smaller. People are having to turn over their cents. A little bit of growth in restaurants and hotels, but we attribute that to still a steady influx of tourists. So the tourists are still supporting the restaurants and accommodation subsectors of the economy.
So normally when it comes to the fourth quarter, we would note an increase because of what happens in December and people having a lot of money, spending a lot of money during that particular time. But now that we still have the logistics problems, is there any indication at all that we perhaps might just remain stagnant?
It's difficult to judge from this perspective. Our October numbers are only going to start coming in from Thursday. I'll have the first October numbers for electricity. But remember the effect of the festive season, we take care of that with seasonal adjustment of the numbers. So we're expecting that the fourth quarter is higher than the third quarter, so we managed to adjust a little bit for that. But with the constraints that we are seeing in the harbours, I mean, there were numbers thrown around of Durban Port at 50 or 70 container vessels waiting. So if there's going to be supply shortages, that's going to reflect in the December sales, well, then we'll definitely see a slowdown in retail, and then that will be reflected in a slowdown in household consumption expenditure as well.
And Joe, does the supply constraints at all contribute to, or could it contribute to inflation? If you have people with the 13 checks, they have the money to buy, but then the goods that they want to buy are actually stuck at a harbour, and those that are left in the stores and perhaps in storages, could we see an increase in those prices?
Yeah, I think you're correct. From basic economics 101, we would say supply and demand, and if the supply is not there, then the price will go up. I think it also becomes a matter of what the type of products are that are stored and what the household's appetite is. Can they delay the purchases maybe by a month or two, or is it really an impulse purchase that they will do irrespective of the price?
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Joe De Beer there, DDG, Economic Statistics at Stats SA. It is 4 o'clock. It's time for the news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thanks, Aldrin. The top stories at this hour. Mashatile pays tribute to Madiba, and the WHO warns of a worsening Gaza intensity. Good afternoon. For SAFM News, I'm Mphosa Thole. Deputy President Paul Mashatile has paid tribute to late former President Nelson Mandela, who passed away on this day 10 years ago. Mashatile delivered his first annual address to the NCOP. The theme of this year's address and debate is accelerating the provision of social services, safety and the advancement of economic reforms for economic recovery in the interests of the people.
Former President Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, who left us exactly on this day 10 years ago in 2013. On an occasion such as this, we recall his wisdom and tenacity in fighting the apartheid system and dedication to building a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous society. We do not only recall, but rededicate ourselves to the vision of our founding president, that of building a better life for all.
Now, the Democratic Alliance says it will go to the courts to force President Cyril Ramaphosa to make public the performance assessments of cabinet ministers. Ramaphosa signed performance agreements with ministers in 2020. Just last month, presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya said the president was under no obligation to release the performance appraisals. Briefing the media in Cape Town on the assessment of both Parliament and the Executive in the 6th Democratic Parliament, DA leader John Steenhuisen says the party will be left with no option but to litigate if the president is not going to freely share information.
We will institute court action to obtain this. South Africans deserve to know the truth about what our president really thinks of his ministers, and after all of their dismal failures throughout, why he retains them in the cabinet, where they can continue to wreak havoc in the economy and continue to cause suffering in the lives of ordinary South Africans. And most importantly, whether he actually has the spine to take the requisite action against them.
The Usindiso building fire inquiry has heard that Commissioner Advocate Thulani Makhubela has previously expressed support for xenophobic organisation Operation Dudula on social media and views that foreign nationals have no place in South Africa. The Commission is hearing an application filed by the Socio-Economic Rights Institute of South Africa and residents of the building for Makhubela to be recused as a commissioner. Advocate Jason Brickhill for Seri says Operation Dudula has been responsible for tormenting foreign nationals for years, which he says Makhubela has supported. He says there's a risk of prejudice if Advocate Makhubela continues as chairperson.
The chairperson, what is set out as a pattern of conduct arising from numerous incidents since 2021 is sustained hate speech, in particular on social media, by Operation Dudula. What is referred to as healthcare xenophobia, which is essentially chasing people out of public clinics and hospitals. And the incidents there referred to, Chairperson, include 2 incidents of pregnant women who were chased out of public hospitals, to evictions that have been carried out in the inner city by Operation Dudula. The murder in April 2022 of Mr. Elvis Nyati, the Zimbabwean national, following an Operation Dudula gathering.
Now, an association that represents migrants says it will approach the High Court in Pretoria to challenge Home Affairs Department's decision not to allow ZEP holders to apply for permanent residency. The Zimbabwe Immigration Federation and Lesotho Special Permit Holders Association says most have been in South Africa for more than a decade. The department has extended the Zimbabwean and Lesotho exemption permit for 2 years, after which it won't allow the holders to apply for permanent residency. The association's chairperson, Luke Mofaro.
One cannot be in the country for 16 years and not be expected to become a permanent resident. One who has been legal in the country for at least 5 years should be allowed to apply for permanent residence. In 2014, when we did the Zimbabwe special permit, they asked for a letter that one is permanently employed, not temporarily employed. And so when one is permanently employed, there's legitimate expectations that the permits will go on, because if they accept that, people started buying houses.
And further afield, the World Health Organization says the situation in Gaza is getting worse by the hour, with intensified bombing by Israeli forces around the southern towns of Khan Yunis and Rafah. Leaflets are reported to have been dropped in and around Khan Yunis, warning people of a major military operation in the coming hours. An Israeli military spokesperson, Colonel Richard Hetch, says the IDF was expanding its operations against Hamas across all of Gaza.
We're targeting operatives, infrastructure, and mainly the tunnel network. So far, we have located over 800 tunnel shafts and destroyed 500 of these. The level of fortification is unprecedented. While we've been operating, we are ensuring that there is minimum harm to civilians, with soldiers on the ground going from building to building.
And in recapping the top story at this hour, Deputy President Paul Mashatile has paid tribute to late former President Nelson Mandela, who passed away on this day 10 years ago. I'll have your headlines at 4:30.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Comrades' entry process to close next week, Van Wyck's legacy as she reflects on women's football progress, and Bangladesh coach warns for complacency ahead of second test. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, the broken down vehicle on Pretoria's N1 South at Rigel Avenue is still there, and the backlog of traffic through to about Atterbury Road. At this stage, a stationary vehicle also in the usual spot, N3 South at Van Buren. That is heavy coming through from Alex, down past Edenvale, through Galulis, and into the Bedfordview area. Behind that, the N12 and R24 roads are heavy coming in from the Ekurhuleni side to join that N3 South queue. There's also a crash near the airport. It's on the R21 South, just before you get to the split to the R24, so some heavy queuing pressure there as well. If you're just joining us, Pietermaritzburg to Durban, all clear after this morning's truck crash and load of molasses. The road has been reopened for some time. And Cape Town, a little bit of load shedding moving into the Tableview, Montague Gardens, Boortessuck areas for the drive home. Also Brackenfell, Kales River and Kraaifontein going offline. Expect some delays across those areas. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
We are saying to JP Smith, you are not the law. You are simply an MMC. And if everybody in the Western Cape is afraid of you, we're not afraid of him. He's not a goddess of South Africa. He's not God. Everybody in the Western Cape, in the DA and so on, when he speaks, it's like it's God or Gabriel speaking. He's not Gabriel.
Gabriel, you've gone too far. Gabriel, you've gone too far, and you should hang your head in shame. For these wounds I cannot stay. You've gone too far. You broke my heart. You've gone too far.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 8 minutes after 4 o'clock, and this is Beyond the Headline with me, Aldrin Sampear. By the way, just another reminder that we are streaming live on X. We are also live on YouTube. So if you want to see what's happening in the studio, you can view all of that on YouTube, and then also go into our Facebook page that is SAFM Radio, and our YouTube channel is SAFM Radio as well. And once you find the channel, just click on the live link and you'll be able to follow whatever is happening in studio. I'll also be reading some of your comments that you are sending through via Facebook as well as YouTube too. Feel free to comment on YouTube as well as Facebook on what's happening on the show or anything else that you'd like to contribute. Coming up on the show in this hour, we will be in conversation with the MEC for Education in a Free State, and this is following the discovery of a body of a 16-year-old who went missing. We'll be speaking to the MEC for Education, Makalo Mohale. The 16-year-old was found dead with multiple stab wounds, and this is after her brother had called her phone and a man answered and demanded a 3,000 rand ransom. So we'll be speaking about that, and also the SABC News reporting that there's been an increase in the number of kidnappings taking place in the Bloemfontein area. And then also coming up on the show at around 4:45, we speak to Deb Zelesnaik, who is the CEO of Center Shoebox Project. And you may have seen this one on social media as well as TikTok, where children in schools are given Christmas gifts in a box, and all of the joy on their face, really priceless. One of the videos have actually now hit 6 million views.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
10 past 4.
10 past 4. Ba, ba.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
10 past 4, 0614-104107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
Get ready for an adventure of a lifetime with SABC TV Licenses Ultimate Competition. Feel the pulse-pounding excitement of a Bundesliga match live on an all-expenses-paid journey you'll never forget. Or embrace the rhythm of your dreams at the Coachella Music Festival. The choice is yours. A football fan's paradise or a music lover's haven. Simply pay your TV license, then head to www.winnerholidayWithSABCTVLicenses.co.za for a chance to win big. And don't forget, there are incredible weekly prizes up for grabs too. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Eintracht Frankfurt plans to have things their way when they clash with the giants of German football Bayern München. They believe a win is more exciting on home ground, while the Bavarians are gunning for strictly 3 points to settle at the top of the table. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch the superb contest between Eintracht Frankfurt and Bayern München on Saturday 9 December at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 12 minutes now after 4 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Makalo Mohale, who is the MEC for Education in the Free State, who's joining us after issuing a statement on the murder of a 16-year-old learner in Bloemfontein. The body of young Machaka Khatebe was found in a field near Phase 9 in Bloemspruit in the early hours of Monday morning. The Department of Education for Young Learners has asked for young learners to be vigilant and announced that psychosocial services will be made available to the pupils as well as staff attending the Brebner Secondary School. We are now joined by the MEC on the line. MEC, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and greetings to your listeners.
What a horrific story this is, MEC. And I was just relaying with Bridget a bit earlier on. I remember that when I was in primary school, we were told of one of our fellow students who went missing. And a couple of days later, they said that they found her naked body on a rock, and she was dead. And she had allegedly been raped as well. And this story for me is reminiscent of what happened that many, many years ago. From the information that has been shared with you so far, MEC, what happened to Machaka?
Thanks, Aldrin. Indeed, this is quite devastating. Indeed, we have received the reports from the police that a lifeless body was discovered, and there are those allegations or those suspicions that she may have been sexually violated as well, given what was found on the scene and the preliminary findings of the police. But nothing is confirmed yet with regard to that matter. But indeed, we are quite devastated that we have lost a learner. For us as the province of the Free State, one life is too many of our learners, and we are quite shocked, and we have no words to describe the pain that the learners at Trapna High School, the parents, and the general school community at large, if one may say, in the province of the Free State were quite shattered, and this is quite painful. I have no words to describe how I feel and everyone in the province for such a young life.
And all of this also happening as we mark 16 days of activism against women and children abuse.
Indeed, this is quite sad, and it has become a trend that each time when there's this commemoration or the celebration or this awareness about the 16 days, there are mostly these horrific incidents that happen. It just shows how sick the society is. Hence, we call upon everyone in our society to ensure the safety of our young women, the safety of the female in general, that we should not leave this matter as a responsibility of the police only. I don't think the police can afford to have every policeman in each and every street. The most effective way of crime prevention, I still believe, is the involvement of society to help the police and the law enforcement agencies to apprehend and to also ensure that we prevent, where possible, all these sorts of incidents. As I say, I don't think the state has that capacity to have police in each and every state. So we call upon our communities to just stand up and ensure that we send a very strong message.
MEC, what did the brother tell the officials? I don't know whether the brother had a conversation with you and your department's officials as well about the last time that he was with his sister, and later on moving all the way up to the discovery of this body yesterday.
Yeah, thus far, the only confirmed information is the one that has been reported that there was an attempt to demand some ransom amount of money when he called. And we have, since the discovery, we have since taken a decision to allow the family to heal and to come to terms with this situation. We thought we will give them an opportunity to deal with this matter by not getting so much detail, but just leaving the police to deal with this matter. When the family is right, when the brother is okay, to can speak further beyond what he has told the police, is then that will be able to interact further with him, and who are equally pleading to the members of the public to afford the family that opportunity to mourn, because from what we have observed, they are so shattered, and we believe that they need to be given some time during this trying time.
And I see that the SABC is also reporting, and we see that there's been an increase in the number of kidnappings that are happening in Bloemfontein specifically. When the schools reopen, because we've seen also that schools have become targets when it comes to kidnapping, what interventions are possible from the education department side at least?
Yes. In fact, this incident happened at the time when the issue of safety at our schools was top on the agenda. And even in the next week where we were to have the last meeting with the senior management of the department, it was one of the issues that we were to discuss, because we, among other interventions that we were having on the table now, it's all about involving the community. It's all about involving the community to help ensure the safety at our schools. At every corner, we hear a number of these incidents. But generally, there's an outcry in the community about the safety general of our learners, particularly the young female or the young girl learners. So we should be in a position to outline clearly just before the school opens as to what then do we have as an interim measure to just respond to this catch. Indeed, I know in the city of Bloemfontein, there are still 2 young females that are missing. Even I think the police have also indicated that they are working around the clock to ensure that they can find them as well. So that has caused a panic, that has caused an alarm within our communities and as well, particularly with the learners. Hence, we made a call, an appeal to the learners to just be careful on who they interact with, but most importantly, wherever they go, they should at least report where they are going to maybe to the neighbor, to the parent or to a friend, so that when the learner happens to be or can happen to be missing, it becomes easier to at least know where to look. But most importantly, said to them, even because some are still going to school, some they'll still go even during the opening of the schools next day. We encourage them to always be in the groups as they walk from school, so that it becomes difficult for criminals to target them. But most importantly, to try by all means to avoid interaction with the strangers, particularly those that come via the social media, because that has become a platform which is being used to target our young learners. So we encourage them to try by all means to avoid the strangers and don't easily believe whatever that has been used to attract them. Those things that are too good to be true. We say to our learners, please just be more careful. We don't want to hear any other incident.
Thank you so much for your time. That is the MEC for Education in the Free State, Makalo Mohale, on this incident where 16-year-old Machaka's lifeless body was found in a field. And the 2 girls that he's referring to who are still missing is Lisiho Mutaung as well as Lerato Maseo.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Adrian, this is Nondi in Cape Town. I remember vividly, I was with my grandmother, who was 81 years old at the time, and we were just watching TV, Then Zuma comes in and announces the passing of the old man. And may his soul rest in eternal and indescribable peace. But I do remember, as I was talking to my grandmother, that tomorrow, that is Friday, on the 6th of December, the sun will rise on the east and set on the west. In other words, Mandela was only a mortal being, but with a big heart, humility, man who made a big difference. Adrian, enjoy. Good afternoon.
Hi, Aldrin. It's Clon here from Durban. No, man, I remember very well that Thursday. I think I was listening to your sister station, Ukozi FM, because their sport show started at 7 ends at 8. So as I was busy, I just ended up getting tuned to watching the thingy, to listening to Ukozi FM. So it so happened that the then good President Zuma had to speak and deliver such sad news. Sad news. As much as I, as an individual, I had already prepared myself for such eventuality, given the fact that the old man had not been good for some time by then. So yeah, it was a sad day, man.
Yeah, actually, how did you feel? Do you remember what it felt like? That now it's been confirmed, because remember that it was also the days leading up to the 5th of December, where there were journalists outside the various hospitals where the former statesman was being kept at. And I remember even Mac Maharaj's famous phrase, critical but stable. Every time there will be that statement that will come from the president. Mac Maharaj was the spokesperson at the time, and he will issue a statement. The former president is critical but stable. And we're counting the days. It's been how many days now since he's been in hospital? It's been 50 days since he's been in hospital. And all of the tributes that will come through. And international media also. Some of the people that we look up to in international media were covering the story. And then, of course, on the day that he was lying in state in Pretoria, I was also part of the people who were queuing up. 0614-104-107. And you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen. Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
25 minutes after 4 o'clock, in conversation next with Dr. Nthabiseng Moliko, who is an economist at the Stellenbosch Business School, as we commemorate 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Our next guest argues that the 1.6 billion rand budget allocation is not reaching the organizations protecting women and children. This is despite commitments made at the Presidential Summit on GBV in 2018 and 2022, and the femicide and rollout of the National Emergency Response Action Plan. The budget also not stemming the tide of violent crimes against women and children either. Crime statistics for July to September 2023 estimate that around 100 rapes and 78 women were killed daily. To tell us more about this, we are joined by Dr. Nthabiseng Moliko. Dr. Moliko, good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Very good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
I was actually speaking to one of the activists who works in this space in Mpumalanga, and I asked her specifically about the gender-based violence and femicide fund that was set aside. And I asked if any of the organizations that she represents have ever received any of this money, and she said nothing to her knowledge. What is your experience, and what have you heard?
Well, I think on the funding side, the announcement, just to take a little bit back, there have been several commitments made by the president, which directly means that the government or the state has then announced, at least at a policy level, that these are the interventions that they will put in place, and then this is the funding that will then back up the activities of the state to try and quell the scourge of gender-based violence. I think just on the funding side, the monies that are allocated are obviously to the different departments, whether it's the South African Police Service, it would be the Department of Social Development, because the monies have never been ring-fenced into a specific fund. The private sector then mobilized capital on their own GBVF fund, and that mobilization has its own process for applicants which are then vetted, and then the money is dispersed accordingly based on their deliverables. So I think on the state side, the 1.6 billion, the Commission for Gender Equality in a report cited looking at the priorities and whether or not there have been an impact post the action plan of the government and how successful that has been. And I think one of the findings is that it's very difficult to ring fence and niche and show the actual impact on rape, on sexual violence, and also on gender-based violence or domestic violence and femicide, because the money is not ring-fenced, and it's very difficult also to follow through on the impact in terms of the activities of that money. I think, secondly, the money we do know from an austerity perspective, there have been allocation cuts because of austerity from National Treasury affecting all departments, and this is inclusive of Department of Social Development, which outsources to many of these NPOs or NGOs that assist the government in the response post-victimization or violence to women. And so we know that they will be all adversely affected because of the budget cuts.
So how should we how should we approach this conversation differently then, and also deal with the issues that you speak about around the ring fencing and also being able to track how the allocation of the money has actually changed the lives of women?
I think the first thing, Aldrin, if we are really as a nation are able to respond to crises, the country has two crises right now. One of the critical crises that we are talking about now is the violence against women and children, the scourge of gender-based violence that is unquelling. It's not being moved. The rape rate, the murder rate, the femicide rate, and the effect on society is not necessarily being reduced by the current actions. And so what that means is that the response is not adequate. Remember, what you do is you have to monitor the effect and the impact of your activities so that they actually have a reduction on the rate of domestic violence, on the rate of femicide and rape. So all the sexual crime statistics that you have just cited, including more, show that whatever we've established from an institutional perspective, even from emergency response action plan perspective, more than half of those targets were never implemented or achieved. So it says to you that the prioritization of these activities are inadequate. So it's not just about funding, but it's about the adequacy of the interventions. And so one needs to look at the adequacy of those. And I think we have not necessarily declined and caused the decline in the incidence of GBV. One of the primary reasons is that you are not able to deal with perpetrators and have interventions that ensure access to justice for these victims of crime and survivors of gender-based violence. So the accountability architecture is not adequate. And I think SAPS has a role to play here. The case processes have a role to play here. What we call the DNA, the laboratories, and all of the tests that are done to confirm these victims that are sent to court, the processing of the DNA, that has a role to play here. And that hasn't necessarily increased sufficiently the throughput rate and the deterrent that is necessary for perpetrators to know this is unacceptable, this is something that the justice cluster will respond to harshly, and that sexual crimes are not something that we will take lightly as a country. And I think the urgency is just not there. The urgency is just not there. We're continuing as normal as a society. I know Cape Tech, there was a situation of a woman stabbed in full view of the other students, in full view. The other students had to put their lives at risk to protect that young woman. There are children in the Eastern Cape who are being molested under 10 in full view of the Department of Education. And again, we're seeing that the national outcry doesn't yield the actions and the interventions that are required.
Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Ntabiseng Muliko there, economist at the Stellenbosch Business School.
Good afternoon. For SFM News, I'm Mphosa Tole. In your headlines, Ezulwini Investments lawyer Sharifik Sali says the ANC's application to the Constitutional Court is a desperate and meritless attempt to halt executions. It comes after the sheriff visited the party's headquarters at Luthuli House in Johannesburg to attach assets there yesterday. In other news, Deputy President Paul Mashatile has paid tribute to the late former President Nelson Mandela, who passed away on this day 10 years ago. Mashatile delivered his first annual address to the NCOP. Further afield, Britain's immigration minister says the government will table emergency legislation to implement its Rwanda asylum policy following legal challenges and setbacks. This policy will see some migrants deported to Rwanda to claim asylum there. Greg Hosts will have your full news bulletin at the top of the hour.
And let's get a traffic update with the award-winning Rob Byrne. Congratulations, Rob.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. All right, the N1 going south, the breakdown in Pretoria just by Rigel Avenue. Traffic now is backing all the way back to Linwood Road. Also broken down vehicle at Van Buren on the N3 south. That's heavy coming from Alex. The N12 and R24 routes in from Ekurhuleni trying to get into the N3, very heavy. And a crash keeping east of Joburg, the R21 south just before the R24 split. And that's a queue approaching the airport from as far back as Atlas Road. Truck has gone off Kai Cuttings in the Eastern Cape on the N2. It's on the Butterworth side. No closure, but there's a lot of EMS vehicles at the scene. So just take it easy working your way around Kai Cutting. East London, very busy. A stationary truck on Settlers Way in the CBD. And if you're heading out of Cape Town towards Powell, there's some roadworks. One lane open approaching Clubmud's exit, and that's a heavy queue just after the Kliphaven off-ramp. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Khapele.
In your sports this hour, more than 80% of the 23,000 entry cap for next year's Comrades Marathon has been sold, with the entry process set to close on the 11th of December. And race manager Anne Ashworld has called on runners to get their entry in if they have not yet already entered. The entry tally currently stands at nearly 19,000, with 72 countries represented in next year's 49th Comrades Uprun. South African entries total to 17,000, with 13,000 male and 3,600 females. Entry fees remain the same as that of this year's race, with South African entrants 1,200. The rest of Africa, it's 2,000 rands, and international entrants are 4,500. And entry is free for all runners who have completed the Comrades Marathon 25 times or more. In football, as a product of the Safa Girls Academy based at the High Performance Centre in Pretoria, and one of the first players to come out of the program, retired Banyana captain Janine van Wyk, says a lot of progress has been made in women's football in the country. Addressing the media after having played her last game in the national colours through the arranged exit in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations qualifying matches against Burkina Faso, van Wyk touches on the positives that have been done for the women's football.
Well, it's been amazing to see the women's transformation over the years unfold. A lot has happened, a lot of investments made into women's football, and I think people could see that women's football is probably the fastest growing sport globally right now, and a lot of investments are being made worldwide. And although I do think that South Africa are still some steps behind compared to the rest of the world that is investing a lot in their women's game. I do believe from when I first started to where we are now, a lot is, being done for women's football.
Elsewhere, Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta says that he admires Luton Town and their remarkable journey to get to the Premier League, adding that he expects a difficult game at Kenilworth Road tonight. Arsenal moved 2 points clear of Liverpool on top of the standings after a 2-1 win over Wolverhampton on Saturday, while Luton, who climbed their way up from non-league football to the Premier League in 9 years, are 17th in their debut season in the top flight, 2 points above the drop zone.
I would say it's an inspiring place. I think what they've done is remarkable. What Rob did with the team last year, the way they did it, what they transmit as a team, we are neighbors, always very close from here. So it's just an amazing story, and they fully deserve all the credit that they are getting from last year, as well the way they are playing this season, the results that they got, how close the games they've been, all the games that they play, they've been extremely close. So tomorrow we're going to have a really intense and difficult match.
In cricket, Bangladesh coach Andika has warned that his side against complacency. This is a day before the second test against New Zealand kicks off, despite the host dominating win in the first match of the series. The second test begins in Dhaka tomorrow, with Bangladesh looking for a win or their maiden test series against the visitors. Bangladesh, who have previously won test series against Zimbabwe, West Indies, Afghanistan and Ireland, defeated New Zealand by 150 runs in the first test. Then in tennis, world number 5 Andrei Rublev will begin his 2024 season at the Hong Kong Open, with the ATP Tour returns to the city for the first time in more than 20 years. The 26-year-old will be joined by Grand Slam semi-finalists Francis Tiafoe and Karen Khachanov for the January 1st to the 7th event at Victoria Park, and it's a very important warm-up for the Australian Open, so they'll be looking to do well. Australian great Rod Laver won the inaugural edition back in 1973, and Rublev, who'll be top seed, won 2 titles this year at Bastard in Sweden and Monte Carlo. Well, that's it. It's a wrap from my side. For SAFM Sport, I'm Dumin Khapele.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 40 Rand from Sandton to Rhodesfield. It's for the bozzers who switch off the geyser when no one's home. And for our clever who get that there's food at home means exactly that. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 40 Rand from Sandton to Rhodesfield Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
Brighton and Hove Albion are going all out to brighten their clash against Burnley FC with maximum points.
And Bigler again, that was a masterpiece.
However, Burnley FC will display a sense of urgency to move up from the relegation zone.
Dariola has scored! Down the middle! Burnley lead! Shane Rodriguez!
Who will have a great day on the field of play? The Seagulls or the Clarets? This is the Premier League. Catch the exciting clash between Brighton and Hove Albion and Burnley FC on Saturday, 9 December at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And let's get a market update with Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good evening. Welcome to the show. Let's look at the Transaction Capital's yearly results.
Afternoon to you, Adrian, and to the listeners. Adrian, there's been an industry-wide structural shift as a consequence of changing economies impacting taxi operators. This has necessitated a move away from financing new minibus taxis to financing only pre-owned vehicles, and that is to create affordability in this market segment. Taxi operators had to deal with elevated fuel prices, high interest rates, increasing cost of parts and maintenance, lower commuter volumes as a result of depressed economic activity, inability to increase fares given already financially stretched consumers. The guys had to increase their write-offs by 1.1 billion, that is for the repossessed vehicles, and supportive conditions that we buy cars has been benefiting from, unfortunately have reversed, including the supply of new vehicles that has improved, and their offering of finance and insurance solutions for older cars at the lower end of the second-hand market. The second-hand vehicle market is gaining momentum, and then that is a nice one for them to be able to diversify their revenue stream. But the profits as headline earnings per share decreased by a whopping 144%. But markets, don't worry, they see the share price looking forward as a good thing. Share price at some point was up 12%, now it's up 8%.
And tell us about local and international market developments.
Our Q3 GDP was worse than expected, fell by 0.2%. We expected a fall of 0.1% as logistics constraints and chronic electricity shortages took their toll on our economy, and the world shares paused at elevated levels as market participants upped their bets on ECB rate cuts early in 2024 and grappled with the US Fed outlook as some traders are pushing back hopes that central bankers will cut interest rates in time to avert recession, and Moody's have had to cut China's credit outlook that is from stable to negative because they are worried about a lower economic growth and also property risk. And it is very interesting, Adrian, how quickly we have been swinging from different market narratives this year, and oil prices is going up as OPEC de facto leader Saudi Arabia said supply cuts can go beyond March 2024 if necessary, so that lends some price support. Is up. Brent crude is up 0.6% at $78 a barrel, and the gold rally loses some of the steam as the dollar holds firm, and that's ahead of the U.S. job data. We see the euro metal is down 0.1% at 2026, platinum is down 2% at 899. The DAX, just like the CAC, up 0.4%, FTSE down 0.5%. The Dow, just like the S&P, that down 0.3%. JSE down 1%, with our resources down 2%, industrials down 1%, financials down 0.7%, and the rand is 18.90 to the US dollar, 23.86 to the pound, and 20.45 to the euro.
Thank you so much. That's Markwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Markwe Fund Managers. We're taking your calls on 086 000 2032. Your voice notes on 0614 104 107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear and a comment on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube page. You can watch us streaming live on those two platforms as well as X.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Afternoon, Andre. This is Magdalene from Bloom.
Liratodi, good afternoon.
Aldrin, how are you?
Let's hear from Tandisa joining us from Matlosana. Good afternoon.
Edwin, how are you?
Aldrin.
Who?
It's Aldrin.
Excuse me. My name is. My name is. My name is. My name is. My name is.
Aldrin Sampear.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
My name is what? My name is who? My name is what? My name is who? My name is Aldrin Sampear.
My daughter is loving Aldrin Sampear. Enjoy your show, man.
Aldrin, this time is a good day. You know, I remember very well when Mandela passed. I was with my wife, and our daughter was restless, man. She couldn't sleep, so I switched on the TV. I reached around 11:30 to 12 midnight. That's where I saw the news that Mandela is no more. And during all the process of Mandela, you know, there was the way SNDF conducted itself was marvelous. They did very well.
So much dignity.
And there was this song they played, the brass band of the SNDF, when Mandela was, they were taking Mandela to Eastern Cape. That song, I always, it stayed with me in my mind. I could hear that brass band playing.
Hi there, Aldrin and the team. I remember those days very well. I was in denial, not believing everything that was said, until the day when I was in Pretoria, in Air Force Base, just next to it there, and then I saw the Air Force One landing. And it was President Barack Obama there. And then I saw his convoy of cars leaving for the stadium and stuff. And then I was like, wow, this is a reality. Yeah, thank you.
Konje, who was the sign language interpreter who got very, very famous during the memorial service at FNB Stadium? Is it Tamsangna Janki? Tamsangna Janki. Nyasha on our Facebook page says that Sobukwe was given life on this day only to diminish by a celebrity death. It said continued Sobukwe memory being suppressed even in his grave. That's a point that was made a bit earlier on as well. And on the YouTube page, Obi saying that may we strive to uphold the proudness of our nation that Madiba set in us. May nothing pull us down. The sun will rise. Let's go to Akonuk. Sydney is joining us from there. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Brother Aldrin. It's me, Sydney, the labor in Akonuk, Pushpakrit. Brother Aldrin, on the day I was here at home alone and I got the news first from SAFM. I choked, I suffocated inside, and spontaneously I found myself shedding tears alone here at home. Then the next thing, I, on my own, struggled to comfort myself. Then it went well, but I knew things will never be the same again. Brother Aldrin, I've been to Robben Island. I stood before his cell, dangling my hands on the butler of his cell there, looking at the blanket, that piece of blanket. It was so painful. Even the crew I went with there, they left me there because I was so hysterical. I stood for a long time. It saddens me today when I look at the things, how they turn out to be today.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things in life, they happens only once. And then Mandela is one of those. It happens only once.
Sydney.
And it's so, Brother Aldrin.
Thank you so much for that call there. Sydney there
Thank
from
you, Brother
Akonuk. Actually, on the point that Sydney is expressing now, Dumi was telling us about her experience as well at Robben Island. We got this text message on our WhatsApp line from Nelly, who says, where is it now? Okay, it says here, "Hi Aldrin, can't remember exactly where I was on the 5th, 10 years ago, but on the 4th of November this year, I was in his cell. They said the bucket was used by him, for," and she has emoticons there, hiding face, and the plate was for him as well. And she sent us pictures of her in the cell, looking at the so-called bucket. We know, right, what the bucket is for. 0614-104107, and you can drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086 000 2032.
For the thousands in attendance, ladies and gentlemen,
Beyond the Headline.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
To infinity and beyond!
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Hey, Thamsanqa Tyangi. Hey, waza wasibukisa ngomhlaba jikelele. But we love that he was caught out. Love that he was caught out. 0614-104-107, and you can also drop us an X at Aldrin Sampear and comments on our Facebook as well as our YouTube page. We're in conversation next with Deb Zelezniak, who is the CEO of the Center Shoe Box Project. The virtual Center Shoe Boxes initiative has brought the world to tears, and tears of joy at that. That is after a young boy was captured on video celebrating after he received a special gift whilst at school in the Western Cape. Each year, the Center Shoebox Project collects and distributes personalized gifts of essential items and treats for underprivileged children throughout South Africa as well as Namibia. And joining us now to tell us more about this noble initiative, it is Deb. Deb, good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Oh, Aldrin, I'm so pleased to be on your show. That was such a great introduction.
Do you love it?
Goosebumps. I love it. Love your work.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Deb, for making time for us. We love your work and we love what you're doing. I saw the video on TikTok is now actually on like 6 million views.
It has been a game changer, Aldrin. You must be careful what we wish for, right? We wanted to go viral. We wanted to tell our story to the whole world. And all of a sudden, it happened. It's been so heartwarming, the incredible responses that we've had from literally every country in the world. The comments along the lines of, goodness me, I will not take anything for granted anymore. Look at these beautiful children enjoying things, showing such appreciation. it's just told the South African story, really, to people who had no idea about what we do in our gorgeous country.
Actually, one of the comments on the TikTok video reads as follows from Nunu, who says that this is so humbling, innocent children appreciating simple gifts. Unfortunately, some UK children would turn their nose to less than £500 spend. And here we have in this gift box the essentials. And people speaking about, it's the soap that excites them. It's the toothpaste that excites them as well. But also for me, beyond the gifts, it's saying that you are seen. These children are being seen. Their existence is being seen. And for me, that's such an important part, because sometimes when families, and we had the conversation just the other day on the show, families would have Christmas specials and they'd have their Christmas luncheons and so forth. However, though, there are some people out there who are not as privileged to enjoy those. But for moments like these are very special for them. And thank you so much, Deb, for what you and the team are doing.
It's what makes our hearts sing, Aldrin. That is exactly why we do what we do. It's hard work, The South African economy is not as rosy as we'd all like, and we are asking people to support us to choose our project and the precious children that we serve. And it's a big commitment because, charity starts at home, and underprivileged children living in poverty, it's a very uncomfortable truth, and it's a hard one to ask people to look at in the face and do something about it. And that is exactly what our incredible supporters have again done this year. It's been magnificent.
Tell us about how this idea came about, the Center Shoebox Project.
Gosh, we're 18 years old now. It started in 2006. A group of St. Cyprian's school moms got together in Cape Town. They selected a children's home, which was close to the school, and they created shoebox gifts for them. The shoebox itself is of something that is accessible. It's contained. It makes it simpler and easier and more inviting for anybody to get involved. So it started back then, 160 shoeboxes, and it just took off because people love doing good. South Africans are generous. They feel empowered to give. Giving feels as good as receiving, as we know.
It does. It really does.
And in 18 years, goodness, we've exceeded 1.2 million Santa shoeboxes distributed to children in need. I know. It's an incredible number.
Can you even count from 1 to 1.6 million?
Amazing.
It is incredible. Well done. So now that you have this international exposure, and you were saying earlier on in the beginning of the conversation, be careful what you wish for. I'm sure there have been more demands that are coming, but are there people who are saying, I want to assist, I want to help out, I want to join the Center Shoebox Project?
So many. It's been remarkable for my team and I. We wake up in the morning and we see the rest of the world waking up. The comments come in first from Australia. I'm going to get this horribly wrong. My geography is useless.
Yeah.
But coming in first from Australia. Then it starts in England. Then it moves over to Europe. Then it goes across to America. It's been getting pledges of...
Oh, Deb, we're losing you. Let's see.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, we lost you there for a second. Yeah, you were going through your geography and when the messages are coming through from the various continents. Yeah.
Those same people pledge virtual Santa shoeboxes. We've got virtual pledges for like Ireland, England, every state in the United States. The support has been magnificent, and it sets us up for a very, which is so magnificent.
Yeah. Deb, the network is giving us a difficult time, but we got the point, we got the idea, and I hope that you guys will grow bigger and bigger, and hopefully one day we'll hear about a Center Shoebox Project now having an office in Zambia, in Lusaka, or somewhere else on the globe. I hope it doesn't end here.
No, it certainly doesn't. Aldrin, I'm so sorry about the signal. There's terrible load shedding where I am in Joburg.
Can you please?
Can you still hear me?
We can. Can you please ask the people that are pledging to also pledge electricity for us? Who knows?
I've heard all year. From your lips, honestly, to our energy minister's ears. Aldrin, we build creches with the proceeds of our virtual Santa shoeboxes. We have built 4 creches. We have trained over 700 early childhood development caregivers. And we install reading corners. It's more than just a shoebox. We make a significant impact in the communities in which our children live.
I love that. So for people who want to assist and want to be part of the Shoebox Project, the Santa Shoebox project, what should they do? How do they get in contact with you?
They should just find us on socials. We are Santa Shoebox on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram, and of course our website, santashoebox.org.za. We're info at santashoebox.org.za if they'd like to drop us an email. We love hearing from our supporters.
And well done once again. Congratulations. And all the best, and hope that the initiative grows and grows and becomes bigger. And as I said, also in other countries as well. That is Deb Zeleniak, who is the CEO of the Santa Shoebox Project, speaking to us there about this initiative. And you must go on to the TikTok page of theirs and see this video that has now been watched 6 million times. 0614 104 107.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. Uzondolena from East London. It's so funny that you speak about this day. 2013, 10 years back, the exact day that Nelson Mandela passed away. It was one of the saddest days in my life because I was actually in prison and people were telling me that Nelson Mandela was dead and I wouldn't believe it.
Oh, wow.
And it was so sad that the person who'd literally sacrificed his life for us to get education, and here I was sitting in the place where he'd gone for me to get freedom, eh? Pretty sad, man. Enjoying the show. Cheers.
Shucks, would have loved to hear the further reflections around that and the contradictions as well. But thank you so much for sharing that. Tell us about where you were on the 5th of December when the news broke that the former statesman Nelson Mandela had passed on. And of course, as we're saying that, remember the days leading up to the announcement as well. And the camera crews and the media crews outside the various hospitals where the former president was being treated at. And then eventually, of course, the 5th of December, the news broke that Nelson Mandela has passed on. 0614 104 1807. And you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. It's 5 o'clock. It's time for the news with Greg Goos. Good afternoon.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thank you, Aldrin, and good day to you. KZN Company speaks on ANC's Concourt appeal, and Britain pushes ahead with Rwanda asylum policy. The lawyer for KwaZulu-Natal-based printing company Uzolweni Investments, Shafiq Saleh, says the ANC's application to the Constitutional Court is a desperate and meritless attempt to halt the execution of a court order. This after the sheriff visited the party's headquarters at Atuli House in Johannesburg to attach assets. The sheriff's visit follows the failure by the ANC to pay Uzolweni for election posters and banners provided in 2019. The High Court in Johannesburg granted the order sought by the company to attach the ANC's assets for failing to pay over 100 million rand owed to the company, and the Supreme Court of Appeal upheld this decision. Saleh explains.
We have absolutely no doubt that the Constitutional Court will not grant leave, will dismiss the application. Now, I want to deal with the allegations and to correct this information that the ANC spokesperson has disseminated about the sheriff's attachment yesterday. Now, firstly, we had instructed the sheriff last week, immediately upon receiving the reissued writs from the Court of First Instance, to proceed with the execution process. We had done so affording, when perhaps no such indulgence was warranted to the ruling party, we had afforded them the dignity and decorum by not immediately attaching and removing the goods.
The Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, has paid tribute to the late former President Nelson Mandela, who passed away on this day 10 years ago. He delivered his first annual address to the National Council of Provinces.
Former President Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, who left us exactly on this day 10 years ago in 2013. On an occasion such as this, we recall his wisdom and tenacity in fighting the apartheid system and dedication to building a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous society. We do not only recall but rededicate ourselves to the vision of our founding president, that of building a better life for all.
The Red Cross Society of SA says cases of migrants along the Beitbridge border post near Zimbabwe require immediate intervention. This after 443 unaccompanied children under the age of 8 years old were intercepted before passing through the border post into Musina. Red Cross spokesperson Herman Moyana.
Depend on the push factor and the pull factor. What drives them to come here? What pulls them to come here? It's different issues. Every child has got different reasons why they are migrating. So it's still about. I won't say it's economic issues. I won't say it's an issue of the protection. It's a variety of issues that push them or pull them to flee out of their country.
Minal Moyana says they're offering health services to various people at the border.
Red Cross will help, not focusing on the migrants only. We work with everyone. As you know, we are neutral and impartial, so our work based with everyone who need an assistance based on what assistance you may need of. That's why I've made an example to say, in terms of establishing the contact, we do have volunteers who work in daily basis to provide issue of connection to the family news.
Finally, Britain's immigration minister says the government will table emergency legislation to implement its Rwanda asylum policy following legal challenges and setbacks. The policy will see some migrants being deported to Rwanda to claim asylum there. A new treaty being signed today with Rwanda will include provisions to ensure it does not expel the migrants. Dominic Grieve is a former Conservative Attorney General.
That is constitutionally a very unusual thing to do, and I think a number of people have characterised it as grossly improper. And I think it's likely to lead to serious problems for the government because it's probable that they wouldn't be able to get that legislation through Parliament immediately because it might well be blocked in the House of Lords.
The top story, the lawyer for KZN-based printing company Isolweni Investments says the ANC's application to the ConCourt is a desperate and meritless attempt to halt the execution of a court order. This after the sheriff visited the party's headquarters in Johannesburg to attach assets. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khus.
In your sports, the Samoa female boxer encouraged by Boxing South Africa board composition. Over 70% of Comrades entries sold and Pirates set to welcome stubborn Swallows. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Looks a real mess through Galuli's interchange today. Primarily a breakdown at Van Buren on the N3 going south. So that's heavy coming down from Alex through Edenvale and Galuli's down into Germiston. The N3 going north is heavy from Cement Factory up into Galuli's. N12 and R24 routes from the east. Both of those jammed coming through to join the N3 south at Galuli. So multiple routes under pressure there. A lot of congestion on local routes as well. The R21, a big crash near the airport. That's southbound just before the R24. That traffic remains heavy back as far as Pomona Road today. Also crash on the other side of town, N1 south at 14th Avenue. So from Randburg on your way to Soweto, it stays backed up. The broken down vehicle on the M1 south in Pretoria is still there by Rigel. The traffic heavy queues back towards Linwood Road territory. That's a big backlog leaving Pretoria today. Crash coming down from Balito into Durban. The collision just by the R43 Tongat exit. Now you can't use the M4 coastal freeway. That remains closed. So everybody having to sit in some very heavy traffic from Shuckers Rock territory down towards that crash scene. Cape Town today, Marine Drive, very heavy out as far as Bay Beach Avenue. That's the second lights at Sunset Beach. And the M5's quite heavy both ways between Kuberg Interchange and the N2 highway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Teenage pregnancy is rife in South Africa. This is very alarming, with 1 in 4 girls under 20 years of age falling pregnant. The current stats released by Statistics South Africa indicate that more than 90,000 girls between 10 to 19 years of age gave birth between March 2021 to April 2022 in all 9 provinces. Why? Why is South Africa one of the highest globally in teenage pregnancy? No means no. Stop gender-based violence femicide now. SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Eintracht Frankfurt plans to have things their way when they clash with the giants of German football Bayern München. They believe a win is more exciting on home ground, while the Bavarians are gunning for strictly 3 points to settle at the top of the table. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch the superb contest between Eintracht Frankfurt and Bayern München on Saturday 9 December at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies invites interested individuals and stakeholders to submit written comments on the SABC bill. The bill seeks to repeal the Broadcasting Act of 1999 to regulate the continued existence of the SABC, to provide its governance, to amend the ICASA Act of 2000 and the Electronic Communications Act of 2005. For more information, contact the Portfolio Committee of Communications and Digital Technologies by emailing sabcbill@parliament.gov.za, directed to Hanjiera Sali.
Like, for instance, point that was raised by another voice note. It says that the prosecutor said the bail must be 5,000. The defense said 4,000. What did the magistrate say?
Yes.
What did the magistrate say?
10,000.
Why did the magistrate say 10,000?
That is still unfair.
Wait, Tommy Pendulumbuzo, answer the question.
Few inches later.
Hey, Tommy Pendulumbuzo.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
I know that I don't know.
It's 10 minutes after 5 o'clock. Coming up on the show in this hour, we're in conversation with Brigadier Atlanta Mate, who's the spokesperson for the police, as we look at yet another drug bust that happened yesterday at the Durban harbour, and apparently the drugs were from Brazil, so we'll be speaking to the Brigadier in the next short while. And then at around 5:20, we speak to Andrew Lukele, who's the chairperson of the National Stockfel Society of South Africa, and they are warning members of Stockfels to keep their operations private, especially as the festive season gets underway. I wonder if anyone has a story about, Stockfel and, there's somebody who keeps the Stockfel money when the money disappears, or the said person who is the treasurer disappears with the money. What did you do after that? 0614-104-107 and an X at Aldrin Sampear.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Let's speak to Brigadier Atlanta Mates, the spokesperson for the police. So the Durban port has become a hub for international drug networks smuggling drugs into the country, as the police seized 150 million rand worth of cocaine that arrived at the Durban harbour from Brazil yesterday. And Brigadier Atlanta Mates now joining us on the line. Brigadier, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. So the third massive drug bust in the past 2 months at this particular harbour. What's happening?
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. Aldrin, these criminals are becoming more sophisticated, but what is even more encouraging is that our members are beating these criminals at their own game. We are able to intercept these drugs, of which the majority of them are being disguised as meat, because we are finding them in meat boxes that are destined for the country. So yes, this just illustrates that our SAPS members are hard at work in disrupting and dismantling transnational organized crime that poses a significant threat to the communities that we serve. We are quite encouraged by the work that the Durban Harbour members are doing. This is the third massive drug bust in just 2 months. The first was in October where 70 million worth of cocaine was seized. The second drug bust happened 2 days later at the same harbour, where we seized also 70 million worth of cocaine. And this is by far the largest drug bust at that particular harbour, where we have seized 151 million rand worth of cocaine.
So with this particular bust, was it detection or was it a tip-off?
Well, it was a bit of both. We have our informers that we are working with. We also have our members that are on a daily basis monitoring the vessels, these vessels that are coming into the country. And what is quite disturbing was that all these vessels that were coming into the country were from Brazil, and hence the meeting between the federal police chief of Brazil a week ago in Vienna with the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, General Fani Masemola, where he raised this concern that most of the drugs that we are finding at the ports are coming from Brazil. So a decision was made to enhance the level of cooperation between the two countries, which we are already working together with Brazil authorities and have seen great successes in the sharing of information on drugs and other criminal activities, as well as countering international crime syndicates. But what really came out of that meeting is that we need to enhance this working relationship so that these syndicates or these drugs can be seized in Brazil before they make their way to South Africa.
Yeah. I was about to ask, though, in that meeting, was it determined why Brazil is unable to detect these drugs being smuggled through meat boxes and so forth via containers? What is it about what the Brazil law enforcers are not doing that leads to these drugs actually leaving their harbors and ending up on the South African harbors?
Well, indeed, that is the conversation that we had. And what was raised is that somewhere, somehow, there is a weakness in that system, in that the officials are unable to detect the drugs before they leave the port of entry. But like I've indicated, we have also reached a decision to say let's also enhance our cooperation with the Brazilian Federal Police, so that when we do have that kind of information, we do alert them quickly so that they are able to intercept the drugs. But what is also of concern is that most of the information, we get it after the drugs have left those particular ports. So it does say to us that, yes, the Brazilian police also have to up their efforts in terms of intercepting the drugs before they make their way to the South African shores, because what we have noticed is that the big harbors, South Africa has big harbors, and this attracts the drug traffickers because they think that because we've got the largest harbors on the continent, we won't be able to trace and seize the drugs. But we are proving these drug traffickers wrong, because we are able to intercept and seize those drugs.
And speaking about our big harbors, the concern about the containers piling up in Richards Bay as well as the Durban harbor, there's possibly going to come a time where they're going to be trying to rush out all of these containers. Do you think that that is a concern for the police, or would the police be able to ensure that they still do the detective work whilst those containers are being offloaded?
Well, we are on the ground. We have faith in our police officers that they will leave nothing to chance, and they will be able to continue to do their work in intercepting these drugs, no matter the challenges that are experienced in their ports. It's just a matter of enhancing our efforts and upping our game as the SAPS to ensure that these drugs do not leave their ports, to ensure that they do not get to their destined destinations.
And the final question, this latest bust with the 155 million rand worth of cocaine, is it clear from your bust where the final destination was?
Well, at this stage, investigations are still continuing whether the drugs were destined for South Africa or to other countries. So the investigations are still ongoing. The matter is now being handled by the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation.
Thank you so much for your time. Brigadier Glenda Mate there, the spokesperson for the police. 0614-104107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086 0002032, and we're also taking your comments on our Facebook and YouTube pages.
The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Looking at some of the exes that have come through, Moji saying that I remember very well, I was at home in Jacobsdal and I could sense something is wrong, and I woke up everyone that was sleeping, broke the sad news. And Lindan is saying that I remember that there was no electricity in his area. Few days before his ambulance got stuck on the road, surely he died angry, and I doubt he is resting in peace. Do you remember those stories as well? This is where the ambulance got stuck on the side of the road. It was an embarrassment, I have to say him. SA Poverty saying, what is the purpose of the performance committee if findings can't be made public of ministers who is scrutinizing the state president's performance? I think we do need a committee that will not be biased on the president's performance, and that is what actually the Zondo Commission has also asked for, is that there should be a committee that the president is also accountable to. Let's go to Doe, who's joining us from Durban. Good afternoon.
Hi, Aldrin. I just wanted to make a comment about Santa Shoebox. Our company supports it every year, but it's not a company supported initiative. Mm-hmm. It's an employee-driven initiative. So we've got a lady in our sales team who's got a huge heart for charity, and she arranges every year with us to say, "Come, guys, we are going to support Santa Shoebox." The only thing that the company is doing is we support the packaging, that the boxes that the gifts are being packed in. So we order it from another company, and then we all get a list of names that we go and buy for. So, for example, this year I had to buy for two young ladies, 2 young girls, and I've got a daughter of my own, so I shopped for, like, what would my daughter like,
wow.
a dress or something like that, and we all get it all together. It needs to be wrapped. Your child's name needs to be on the box, and then we hand it in, and then it gets handed over. And this year, our company's just got over 500 employees, and 80 employees gave of themselves. They all scraped the money together. Those who obviously don't have too much, got it together, and they all bought according to the list that we had to buy: a toothbrush, toothpaste, a little gift, school toys, something for school. And it's really a humbling experience to be able to give back to our underprivileged kids.
It sounds incredible. What's the name of your company?
Our company is called AfriPack. We are in packaging ourselves,
okay.
But our employees, it's totally the employees give of themselves, and it's really humbling, and it's going for many, many years as well. So every year we try and get more and get more people involved, and for me, I'm the head of HR for our company. For me, it's humbling that our employees give of themselves to be able to give to other people who don't have.
Yeah. Great. It's great to hear this, though, because and I don't know how it started with you guys and when it started. I know you speak about the lady who's really into charities and giving, but how it started for you guys, but reaching a point where you have around 80 of your staff members willing to give of themselves, as you put it, and I love that phrase as well, because it is something that you take away from yourself to give to somebody else. It is incredible. The selflessness of it is incredible.
No, it's unreal. You know, I always say, you know, that and I'm privileged enough to be able to look after my daughter well, but you know, you always think about that kid who doesn't have a dad or mom or might have them, but their parents just can't give them anything. You know, so I get quite emotional about this, because it is really, we should do it more often, and we should look after people who don't have. We really should.
Here's an applause from us, from the BTH team, Doe, you and the AfriPack staff members. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank
Incredible.
You.
Thank you so much. And say hi to your daughter as well.
I will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Doe there from Durban. It's the selflessness, right? And I hope that it also gets to spur other people on as well. so that they also show these random acts of kindness. And sometimes it's also the intentionality behind it. And it seems that the team there at AfriPac are doing exactly that. So well done to them. And well done to other people out there who we don't get to celebrate every day, who are selfless and who do give of themselves. 0614-104107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Good afternoon, Adrian. Good afternoon to the SFM listeners. Adrian, it's very encouraging and exciting to hear the good news done by our police. We must give credit where it's due. Thank you very much to the SAPS in Durban. A job well done to seize all those drugs. Thank you very much. Segwanele from Pretoria.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
23 minutes after 5 o'clock, we're in conversation next with Andrew Lukela, who's the chairperson of the National Stockfel Association of South Africa, that has warned members of Stockfels to keep their operations private, especially as the festive season gets underway. The association says Stockfels must be vigilant when they share their savings, as scammers may target members in light of December's being a peak withdrawal season for group saving schemes. To share the tips for how Stockfel groups can save or safely disperse their funds, we are joined by Andrew Lukele, who is the chairperson of the National Stockfel Association of South Africa. Andrew, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. So what have you noticed happening during the festive season when it comes to Stockfels?
Yeah, I think what we've noticed is that in January, people put money aside and it accumulates into some high volumes by this time. And most of the time, the money is taken to the bank. And strange enough, few people will be selected in the group to go and withdraw the money. And unfortunately, some of them just get into a taxi and, carrying 200,000 or so and go to someone's private house. That's where the disbursement of money will take place. And that is a disaster because it attracts other elements and robbers, and people get hurt and killed sometimes.
So in that particular case, what do you do? Because the general rules or the formula that is followed by the Stockfels is that the money gets withdrawn, you meet somewhere at somebody's house, one of the members' house, and that is where the money gets dispersed. And as you say, that this is lump sum of cash that we're speaking about here. So what would your advice be in that particular situation?
Yeah, it might have worked in the past to do that, but times have changed, and I think new things have to be adopted to prevent these casualties. One way of doing it is to refer to EFT platforms. And in other words, people put their money in the bank and arrange for the money to be dispersed in people's accounts, so that by the time they meet in someone's house and for celebrations and other things, the only thing on the agenda would be to reconcile whether the transactions have been successfully done for everybody, and rectify mistakes if there are mistakes, but they can't have physical cash under one roof without protection. I think that's dangerous.
Yeah. What about fraud amongst the members themselves?
Oh, look, fraud does happen, beyond fraud, I think people do, reveal information to outsiders. A Stockfel of 10 people is a business of those 10 people, and the secrets of the group must be kept among those people. Unfortunately, during this time, because there'll be lump sum coming their way, people get excited and they share the information with the machonisas to promise to repay them and other things. So many people outside the Stockfel get information which they're not supposed to have. And I cannot rule out the possibility of few rotten potatoes within a Stockfel who collude with the outsiders as well. Yeah.
And treasurers running away with the money?
Yeah, the treasurer can run away with the money, but
and then claim that they were actually robbed.
No, I understand that you're right. there's very strange things that happen in the Stockfel. A Stockfel thrives on trust and peer pressure. And that on its own is no longer enough. I think it's important for people to have constitutions nowadays, so that if you think someone has transgreded some acts or laws of the group, you can take some recourse. And fraud is fraud. You know, members of Stockfels are entitled to legislation that protects them, like the courts and yeah.
Can you share with us, Andrew, any alarming story perhaps that is right at the top of your head around money disappearing from the Stockfel, or in this particular case what we're also speaking about, how the money would be dispersed at a house and then people get robbed?
Yeah, look, there are certain people who have very powerful personalities in Stockfels, in terms of leadership and all that. And people get trusted to an extent that people don't check whether the money has been deposited. I'm not talking end of the year. On a normal weekend, people don't check whether the money was deposited and whether the money gets withdrawn during the course of the year. They just wait for end of the year with the expectation that they'll receive their lump sum. So the trust, or too much trust, can be detrimental as well. Look, I've heard stories in the case at end where literary people are shot, and you can't go beyond that. I mean, that is a disaster. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Andrew Lukele there, the chairperson of the National Stockfel Association of South Africa. 0614-104-107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Any stories that you know of money disappearing in a Stockfel, please do share that with us.
These Stockfel members don't listen. They don't really learn because they think they are so special it will not happen to them. They are constantly warned. Do not come and collect the cash. Bring your bank account, so that this money is divided and put into your account so you can use it slowly but surely. But you know, most of us Africans, you want to see hard cash. And that's how you invite those naughty, silly people, because they are in the banks, they are everywhere. They even know people who are playing these Stockfels. They are waiting for them in their houses because they know they are going to come with cash. So the only thing we learn from our mistakes is that we don't learn anything at all. Science and science of stupidity. Science of a sign and science of physical science of stupidity.
What's the famous poet? What's the famous poet's name again? You spoke about him yesterday. Come on, the famous poet, the people's poet. What's the name of the people's poet? Come on, guys. 30 seconds. We are failing. Mzwakembuli. Oh, hey, these people. 30 seconds. We are failing, guys. Actually, the last part of that voice note reminded me of Mzwakembuli. The signs and science of stupidity. It's 5:30. Time for the news headlines.
Quick look at the headlines. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Malala Yousafzai says it's difficult to live in Afghanistan as a woman. She was delivering the annual Nelson Mandela lecture in Johannesburg. Deputy President Paul Mashatile paid tribute to the late former President Mandela, who passed away on this day 10 years ago. And the World Health Organization has repeated its claim that it had to empty 2 warehouses of medical supplies in Gaza after being advised by Israeli defense forces that they were in a combat zone. More on that international story and other local news at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Look at this stationary truck in Pretoria. It's been there hours. It's on the M1 South at Rigel Avenue. The traffic coming out of Pretoria, driving down to Joburg, stays heavy from almost the N4 Emalafani Highway. Crash also with us a while now. R21 South, just before the R24 split. That's opposite the airport in Joburg. And that R21 very heavy. If you're arriving for flight connections, just be aware you will join a queue from around about Pomona Road all the way down to the airport entry. The Mike 1 looking very slow today from Sandton right through to to the Boysons area. Durban, if you Durban bound coming from Belito, we've had quite a big crash, and it's still with us. There's a collision before you get to the R43 or the M43 exit to Tonga. So traffic is back through Belito and back towards Shuckers Rock. You have to come that way. You can't use the M4. That road remains closed still. So very heavy backlogs on the N2 South. There's also been a crash on the N2 North near Kawashu Highway. So from Queen Nandi Drive, it all backs up again. And coming out of Pietermaritzburg, stationary truck a little bit earlier at Ashburton has been cleared. Traffic still in queue recovery mode, if you like, so still very busy. And Cape Town, the standout is Marine Drive. It is super heavy today from Pardon Island all the way out to the second set of lights at Sunset Beach. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Kapele.
In sports this hour, South Africa's female boxer of the year, Smuggling, is optimistic that Boxing South Africa's new board will not only improve the sport in the country, but will also offer female boxers a voice, something she believes that they have lacked in the past. Sports Minister Zizi Godwa presented a new executive chaired by former promoter Sfiso Shongwe last week, with women outnumbering males 4-3 for a 3-year term beginning on the 12th of December. Then more than 80% of the 23,000 entry cap for next year's Comrades Marathon has been sold, with the entry process closing on the 11th of December. Race manager Anne Ashworth has called on runners to get their entry in if they have not yet already entered. The entry tally currently stands at nearly 19,000, with 72 countries represented in next year's Comrades Uprun. South African entries total to just over 17,000, with over 13,000 males and 3,600 females. Entry fees remain the same as that of this year's race, with South African entrants having to pay 1,002, rest of Africa entrants 2,000 rands, and international entrants is 4,500. Entry is free to all runners who have completed the Comrades Marathon 25 times or more. In football, there's some DStv Premiership action today. Orlando Pirates host Morocco Swallows in the original Soweto derby at Orlando Stadium. The Bucks will be without Tabang Monare, who has 4 yellow cards. The Buccaneers are 9th on the league table with 16 points from 11 games, and they're looking to climb the standings with another improved performance. The Dube Birds are 6th on the log with 18 points from 5 wins, 3 draws, and 3 defeats. Elsewhere, Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta says that he admires Luton Town and their remarkable journey to get to the Premier League, adding that he expects a difficult game at Kenilworth Road tonight. Arsenal moved 2 points clear of Liverpool on top of the standings. This is after a 2-1 win over Wolves on Saturday, while Luton, who climbed their way up from non-league football to the Premier League in 9 years, are 17th in their debut season in the top flight, 2 points above the drop zone.
I would say it's an inspiring place. I think what they've done is remarkable. What Rob did with the team last year, the way they did it, what they transmit as a team, we are neighbors, always very close from here. So it's just an amazing story, and they fully deserve all the credit that they are getting from last year, as well the way they are playing this season, the results that they got, how close the games they've been, all the games that they played, they've been extremely close. So tomorrow we're going to have a really intense and difficult match.
In rugby, the Bliss Box will run out in Cape Town as the top seeds for the tournament this weekend. The South Africans have been drawn in Pool A with Ireland, Great Britain and the USA for what promises to be an action-packed 2 days of rugby at Cape Town Stadium. Argentina will face Fiji, France and Spain in Pool B, while defending champion Samoa will face old foes New Zealand, as well as Australia and Canada in Pool C. And stand-in coach Philip Snyman says that he knows that there will be added pressure in Cape Town.
Yeah, I rather have a little bit more pressure than no pressure at all, and nobody care about us. So, to be honest, I think exactly the same mentality and the same focus as this week. We want every training session be better when we walk off that pitch, make use of our time on the field, tweak 1 or 2 things. I still believe we can still be 10 or 20% better. Still a lot of missed tackles, once or twice that we didn't use our opportunities when we entered the 22. So we'll approach this week every practice session and then that first game. So try to shut all the noises and from the outside and just focus on ourselves, and that's what we said. We want to focus on the Springbok Sevens jersey.
Right, with that said, it is a wrap from my side. Don't forget to tune into our sports show from 7 till 8 p.m. with Michael Abramson. Other than that, ke nna Tumeng Kgapele. Modimo ke o.
Polokwane City want to test if Kaizer Chiefs can handle the Limpopo heat. Their plan is to get a comfortable position in the top half. But the Kosi Nation is in a good mood to collect maximum points away from home. Rise and Shine versus Rise Kosi Rise. This is the DSTV Premiership. Polokwane City versus Kaizer Chiefs on Saturday 9 December at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And it is time for a MoneyWeb market update with Jimmy Moyaha. Jimmy, good evening. Welcome to the show. Also on the show today, I know it's Transaction Capital. Interesting. We buy cars. JC listed?
Good evening, Aldrin. Good evening to the listeners. There's talks of that, but more importantly, what are they doing with the SA taxi business? Because that business has been bleeding. It's been one of the worst performing businesses for them in terms of the amount of debt that sits in that business. And if we look at just Transaction Capital's overall performance, I mean, I had a look at the numbers. A lot of their debt, I think they've got quite a bit of debt, and a lot of it is interest bearing. So you're dealing with the interest bearing component of the debt. The SA taxi business not being able to meet its debt obligations on its side. We've seen this in the past being reported on as well. And then, of course, the biggest asset that is doing well for your business is that We Buy Cars stake, which now the We Buy Cars founders are saying maybe we should list separately and unbundle from Transaction Capital. This is all on top of the fact that Transaction Capital, if you remember earlier in the year, changed CEOs, and we haven't really spoken to the new CEO since the CEO's come in. I mean, the CEO is one of the initial founders, and so it is still someone that's been within the business, but we haven't actually caught up with the CEO since David Hurwitz was, I don't know if we want to say let go, or if that relationship was terminated by mutual agreement. But we'll speak to Transaction Capital. We'll get a sense of what that all means, what the business is planning to do to reverse or to turn around the business from the loss. They swung into quite a significant loss this time around, and obviously shareholders want to know what the plan is to get the business back on track. So we'll get a sense from the executive directors of Transaction Capital about that. And then we'll also look into that EV conversation. We know that Minister Ibrahim Patel announced that there is a white paper on EVs and on the EV space in South Africa and what we can expect to see from there, possibly electric cars as early as 2026. And obviously the other questions come up around whether or not whether we have the infrastructure for it. I mean, we're dealing with unprecedented load shedding levels. You're seeing newspaper headlines and notifications on your cell phone that say code red at Eskom, and you're wondering, is now the time to bring electric vehicles into the country? So we look into that. We get a sense of what that all looks like from an industry point of view. We speak to the automotive industry just around their thoughts about this white paper and if it is a step in the right direction. We know the likes of Ford have in the past said they need government to give guidance on the implementation and the rollout of EVs so that they can make adjustments from a business perspective in terms of what products they're going to roll out into South Africa. So we look into that, see how that's playing out and what the next steps are there. And then we also just touch on those GDP numbers. You mentioned them earlier in the show, saying that we've contracted. You spoke to Stats SA. We just look at that from an economist point of view to just look at some of the other factors that may have driven that, whether or not the logistics woes that we're seeing at Transnet and these load-shedding woes through Eskom have had will continue to have a material impact on GDP numbers going forward. I know the SARB has been very, very optimistic about GDP numbers, and I wonder if that optimism is going to change following this reading and what it means for the rest of the year. So this was Q3's numbers. We still have fourth quarter numbers that'll probably come out in January after the end of the year. But the main thing is going to be, how does this affect the outlook going into 2024? Because a lot of what we thought was priced in, we got very good upside surprising from the manufacturing space over the last 2 quarters, but that we don't know if that's sustainable. We don't know what that looks like going forward, and do the good parts outweigh the bad parts? So we touch on that with an economist from Nedbank and get a sense of what that all means. And then I don't know if you know Revix, the crypto company. They're similar to the OVEX, the Valas, the Lunos of the world. They're merging with another business. There's a new business called Altify. We speak to the Altify CEO. It looks like there's a merger of a couple of crypto players, and we just get a sense of what that looks like, why the merger. I mean, cryptocurrencies are moving at the moment, but we can't ignore what's happened with FTX, what's happened with GS Partners in South Africa recently. I spoke to the FSCA around that crypto market study that they conducted just last week. So we get a sense of what this means from a platform offering perspective, from a product offering perspective, especially for South Africans. We know that the FSCA anticipates that by 2030, I think, in the next 7 years, about half the population will be exposed to crypto in some way, shape, or form in terms of holding assets or transacting in crypto or holding crypto. So definitely something that's going to be getting more and more interesting as the years go, so we might as well get ahead of that. And then because it's Tuesday, we've got our property segment, and today's feature is going to be an interesting one. I'm chatting to an author, a young lady who's written a book about buying her first home. She bought 2 properties when she was 27, and she tells it all in the book, how she did it, what she's gone through, what else is in the book. It's just a guide, a property guide for newbies is what she's called the book. So we speak to her and just get a sense of what else is in the book and where we can get the book for those that are interested in pursuing a property journey similar to what she went through. But before we get to all of that, Henku Creer has been keeping an eye on the markets for us throughout the day. It doesn't look like it was a good day, and I say that because now I had a conversation with Henku just before this, and the rand was below 19 rand. We are at 19 rand and 2 cents. Henku, what's going on?
Yes, Jimmy, hi. Hello to you and hello to Aldrin, and good evening to all the listeners. The rand is tumbling, I don't know why, and we had a terrible day on the JSE today. Not only is it now 19 bucks for a dollar, it's also 24 rand for a pound. But let's start off by looking at what's happening in the US at this stage. It's quite mixed, with the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 trading about 0.5% weaker, and the Nasdaq 0.5% stronger. European stocks finished quite mixed late afternoon, with the FTSE 100 0.5% down and the DAX and the CAC 40 in the green 0.5% stronger. But then the JSE lost 1% today, and it finished at a level of 75,215 points. The financial index finished 0.7% weaker, the industrial index 0.6% down, and then the resources index took quite a beating, finish 2.5% down. Among those contributing to this resources index finishing a lot weaker and a lot lower today, Anglo losing 3% today, Naspers and Prosus 2% down, the two of them hand in hand, Glencore and British American Tobacco each 1.5% weaker, and FirstRand, BHP and Standard Bank each lost 1% today. But it doesn't end there. ARM and Implats each finishing 5% weaker, Tugela and Northam losing 3.5% each, and Anglo and South 32 each lost 3%. But then looking for some companies that gave stronger performances, you find smaller companies like Karoo and Lightprop each gaining 6%. Togosan and the MultiChoice Group did well, finishing 4% up. Redefine gained 3%, and Omnia, Telkom and Pick n Pay each gained 2.5% at the end of the day. On the commodities market, the price of gold still above $2,000, now trading at $2,020 an ounce. Silver is trading at $24, platinum at $900, and palladium at $960. Brent crude still sitting comfortably at $78.80 a barrel. And then, I don't know, Jimmy, now paying 19 Rand for US dollar, 24 Rand for a British pound, 20 Rand 60 cents for a euro, and 12 Rand 50 for an Australian dollar. Bitcoin is something that's not losing at this stage. In fact, it's shooting through the roof. Now trading at $42,000, and that's well above 800,000 Rand, 806,000 Rand. Jimmy, yeah, we might see this change in Rand. It might be because of the GDP figures that came out. I'm not too sure, but let's wait and find out during your market update at 6 tonight.
Yeah, I'll be chatting to Chantal Marks of FNB around that. I'm definitely going to ask her what's happening there. But I also want to get her thoughts on Transaction Capital, because despite the business swinging into a loss, their share price was up about 9% for the day. We haven't seen it at these 8 Rand levels since it came down to here around April this year. I mean, this is effectively the strongest performance, or some of the strongest performance we've seen from the share for the year. So I'm interested to see where to from here for Transaction Capital. I think some of the updates were quite interesting, but we'll dig into that just after 6 as we go into our show. For now, Aldrin, we're going to cross back to you and the SAFM team, and we're going to catch up with the listeners a little later with these updates.
Thank you so much. That is Jimmy Moyaha. He's back again just after 6 o'clock. We're taking your calls on 086 000 2032. You can drop me a voice note on 0614 104 107 and an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086 000 2032, and your comments as well on Facebook as well as our YouTube pages.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Let's go to Bloemfontein. Tato, good evening.
Hello.
Hi, how's it?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, good.
Yes, you know, this topic of societies and stockfels and stuff like that. At this moment in time, sure, it's a very sensitive one.
Yeah, tell me why.
I know 2 stories, like other stories that happened. There was a group of ladies. My friend was in that group. They had Stockfel and everything. Time for them to share. They went to the bank and collect the cash and agreed to meet as per usual, because they meet monthly at another lady's place. Like, they rotate in terms of hosting. That day, she said to me they had about 150,000. 5 minutes in the house, some guy burst into that house and took the money and the cell phones.
And the guy knew, of course. He must have known.
That's what they think, yeah. It was about she said 2 or 3 guys. I can't remember how many. Yes, and they burst in and they took the 150,000 with knives, like they pointed knives at them. They took the money from the table, they asked for cell phones, and they left.
Yo. And then the second incident?
Sorry?
And then you said that there was a second incident?
The other one is where the members, for some reason, had discrepancies, and there was a lot of money also involved. The treasurer and the chairperson, being the signatories at the bank, refused to go and withdraw the money.
Was there actually money?
Was
there money?
Sorry?
Was there money in the account?
There was money in the account. There was money in the account, because what happens at the Stockfel is that every month when you sit, the treasurer brings the actual bank statement to the meeting. You understand? So you can do due diligence as members. Okay, last month when we were sitting collectively, we had 15,000, and that 15,000 reflects as a deposit on the bank statement. So the bank statement and the money, everything was there, but they refused. Like they,
And then how did they solve it?
I don't know. I didn't keep track of that because but I know they went back and forth the whole month of December and the whole month of January. And the money was stuck at the bank. Honestly.
But did they eventually get the money out?
I don't know, but I think they did. I don't know. I think they did because then.
Because I suspect that the chairperson and the treasurer might have withdrawn some of the money without the consent of the entire team.
They managed, as soon as they started fighting and they said, no, you guys must see where to finish. No, they didn't. because the treasurer, the chairperson, and the secretary, they were all three signatories, and their constitution was saying all three must sign at the same time.
Yeah.
So there was no way that the chairperson and the treasurer could have taken the money. But to protect the other members, the bank agreed to freeze the account.
Okay.
Until such time that they have sorted their issues. I am also a member of a Stockfel, but only one rule for me.
Yeah. Which
I
is?
don't go with Stockfels that borrow money out. I don't do loans.
You don't
I go
do
with
loans.
a Stockfel. No, I don't do loans. I don't like to be owed by people, because I feel that if we've put money in the Stockfel, and at the end of May, for instance, in total in the Stockfel there's 16,000, and Aldrin must borrow 5,000. Definitely, part of that 5,000 is not your money; it's our money. So I don't like to be owed.
You're not the Tato Bank of Bloemfontein.
No. I'm not. I work at the bank, but I'm not the bank. I don't want to be owed, because I also don't owe people.
Yeah.
I believe in a Stockfel where we sit down, we do financial planning, we
Okay.
deposit money, we just save money. Come the end of the year, but we share in January.
Thank you so much, Tato
Come the
there
end
from
of the year, we
Bloemfontein.
share the money.
0614-104107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
Eldon, I think the Stockfel must be modernized, because most of the people out here have bank cards. Why can't you just EFT the money from the banks and deposit it directly to the client's bank account?
Hi, Aldrin. Hi, SAFM listeners. Doe's story, the guy who called from Durban, it's actually good to hear encouraging and heartwarming stories like that. So kudos for allowing the call to come through. And kudos to you as well. You not only showed your appreciation for him, you actually told him to wish his daughters well. It's the little things like that, Aldrin, that makes a difference and that makes you unique. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you and the BGH team. Deji from Cape Town. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Looking at some of the comments on Facebook, and everyone showing us love. Babu Tobela Joseph, thank you. Zenzele Nxumalo, siyabonga kakhulu. And where's another one that I saw a bit earlier on? Tato Musebi, Justice Mabunda, Shadrach A. Kalongonda, as well as Brian Zapiro says, my family love your show. Thank you so much. By the way, Tuli Ndebele said Mzwaki Mbuli when I was struggling to get Mzwaki Mbuli's name. So Tuli, if we were ever to play 30 seconds, you're definitely on my team. You get me. Other people don't get me. 0614-104-107. And you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. I just quickly want to see some of the text the comments on the YouTube page. Bernie Diedrich saying that this platform is going to light up. South Africans have been starving for this interaction in the same brilliant timing. BTH, thank you so much. Actually, somebody else was saying that they went on to the YouTube page and they feel, where is it? Oh, here it is. Please don't. Where is this? Okay. Oh, it's a conversation that was happening here, but at some point it goes on to say that I've been so stressed out, I have purposely slowed down my pitch because my mind is racing. YouTube is scaring me. You guys are addictive. Thank you so much. We love being addictive. I think it's a nice thing. And do share with your friends and family as well, and tell them all about Beyond the Headline, and tell them all about SAFM. Speaking about Mzwaki Mbuli, actually we're playing out with his song today featuring Zahara Mandela. We've come to the end of our voyage. Thank you so much for choosing Flight SF. Wait, does he say Mandela? Andela? Ndela? Ella? No, does he? Oh, there it is.
A global icon, internationally acclaimed.
Nelson Mandela.
Okay, we've come to the end of our voyage. Thank you so much for choosing Flight SAFM BTH 326 with me, Aldrin Sampear. As you can hear in the background, Zahara featuring Mzwakembuli, Mandela. And our parting shot is from Nelson Mandela himself, who once said, everyone can rise above their circumstances and achieve success if they are dedicated to and passionate about what they do. And Bernie is reading our credits this evening.
Thank you, BTH team, for a wonderful show as usual. Behind the mic is Aldrin Sampear and Tumi on Sports Desk. The production team, Kanya, Fusani, Sia and Lundi. Good night, everybody. Bernie from Cape Town. Be well.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
And remember to love each other and lead with compassion. Totsins, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Madiba, we shall sustain the momentum. Madiba, we shall preserve your legacy. Madiba, we shall emulate your values and principles. History demands that we succeed as a nation. History demands that we do not become complacent. History demands that we do not rest on our laurels and work harder. We are duty bound to rise above malice and prejudice. Let reason and wisdom prevail. Nelson Mandela, a human treasure, a chief of our Tembo tribe, a former amateur boxer, a graduate from Robben Island Prison, a lawyer by profession, Madiba, the legendary leader, the first commander of Umkhonto weSizwe, a torchbearer who captured world attention, a trendsetter par excellence, 27 years behind bars in a concrete jungle. Indeed, the long road to freedom, the long walk to freedom. You're our better